Hello. If you were looking for a scare tonight, you've come to the right place. I'll be narrating an hour's worth of creepy horror stories that I found off of Reddit. So without further ado,
These are their stories.
Growing up, Christmas was magical. The tree glowing softly in the corner, the smell of gingerbread wafting through the house, and the laughter of my family made it feel like nothing could ever go wrong. But there was one tradition that always felt off. Every Christmas Eve, just before bed, my parents would gather us around the fireplace. They'd turn off all the lights except for the glow of the fire and hand each of us a small bell. "Shake it once for Santa," Dad would say with a smile. "He needs to hear you." So we did. We'd each shake our bells in unison, filling the room with soft jingling, and then my parents would blow out the fire. And that was it. When I was young, I never thought twice about it, but as I got older, I started to notice strange things. The next morning, the fire would always be relit, even though no one got up to do it. There were faint, charred handprints on the bricks surrounding the fireplace. One year, when I was about 12, I asked my mom why we did it. Her face turned pale. "It's just tradition," she said, brushing me off. But that answer wasn't enough. Last Christmas, I decided to stay up. I was 16 and too curious for my own good. My parents and little brother had gone to bed, the house was silent, and the fire had been snuffed out. I sat in the dark, the faint scent of smoke lingering in the air, waiting. At first, nothing happened. I almost gave up and went to bed. Then I heard it, a faint jingling, like someone shaking a bell far off in the distance. I froze. The sound grew louder, closer, until it was coming from the chimney itself. I held my breath, staring at the dark opening, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Something moved. I didn't see it at first, but I felt it. The cold draft that followed as a tall, gaunt figure emerged from the chimney. Its limbs were unnaturally long, its head bent to fit under the low ceiling. Its skin was ashen, flaking, with dark burns trailing up its arms, and it was holding a bell. It raised the bell slowly and shook it once, the sound sharp and clear in the silent room. I couldn't move. Its head turned toward me, hollow eyes boring into mine. A jagged smile spread across its face as it whispered in a voice that sounded like crackling fire, "You're not supposed to watch." The room went black. I woke up in my bed the next morning, trembling, my clothes reeking of smoke. My parents acted like nothing had happened, but when I went downstairs, I saw a fresh set of charred handprints on the fireplace and a bell sitting on the mantle. I haven't shaken a bell since, but every Christmas Eve I hear it, and every year it gets louder. I'm a med student. I was just meant to observe, maybe assist. Nothing in our textbooks or training prepares you for this. I'm writing this from my locked bedroom as something he moves around my house like an animal, only quieter, more intentional, please. Someone tell me what to do. I don't know how long the door will hold. It started 3 weeks ago. I'd only just begun my first rotation, internal medicine. I was shadowing my supervising doctor at St. Thomas's. He was sharp, old school, always wore a bow tie and never seemed rattled. I looked up to him, still do. The man didn't blink during a code blue, but he'd always said, "It's the quiet ones you watch closely, not the screamers, the ones who smile when they shouldn't." I didn't get it at the time. My first solo case, just a basic consult, but my supervising doctor let me take the lead, was a man listed as patient 46B, mid-30s. Slight build, no emergency, no urgent flags, just unexplained bruising. He sat calmly in the consult room, no obvious injuries, pale, thin lips, brown hair that hung limp like it had given up, but his eyes, that was the first thing. They were gray, not blue-gray or hazel gray, just gray, unsettlingly blank like a fogged-over mirror. He spoke slowly, politely, his voice low and toneless. Said the bruises started appearing 3 months ago. Inner thighs, upper arms, spine, places you'd expect with abuse or a bleeding disorder. I examined him, and yes, there were bruises, but they were wrong. The edges weren't purple or yellowing like healing ones. They were pitch black with a red core, as if something inside was trying to get out. I remember asking if he was on any blood thinners. He said no. I asked about substance use, alcohol, anticoagulants. "Never touched a drop," he replied with a smile that felt like someone else's mouth wearing his face. I was unsettled, but I had to write something down, so I chalked it up as possible immune thrombocytopenia, gave him a mild corticosteroid prescription, and told him to return return in a week. We'll run more tests, I said. Probably nothing to worry about. I regret those words. When he returned a week later, things escalated. He looked thinner. Same dark clothes, same blank expression. But there were more bruises. His neck now around his jawline and several across his scalp like blotches of ink. He didn't sit this time. He stood in the corner of the consult room, facing the wall like he was in timeout. Lucas, I asked. That was the only name he'd given. You okay? I can hear them now, he whispered, in the walls. They want out, but they like you. I glanced at the mirror, wondering if this was some elaborate psych eval trick, but it was just me, alone, with him. He finally turned. His pupils were dilated, almost consuming the irises, and there was blood under his fingernails. I don't scratch, he said, as if reading my mind. They move around inside me. I'm not doing it. I referred him to our liaison psychiatrist. I also requested a follow-up with internal. Something didn't add up, physically or mentally. We'll get you seen again soon, I told him. Just hang in there, okay? He nodded. You should lock your doors more, especially after dark. You're warm. They'd like to wear you. The next day, I visited the psychiatrist's office to check in on the referral. The secretary looked up, confused at first, then her expression shifted, something quieter, tinged with sadness. He hasn't come in. You haven't heard? Heard what? She hesitated. He was found dead last night, bludgeoned, in his office. Police think it happened after hours. We're closed today for... I was already walking away, ears buzzing. I didn't want to believe it was connected, couldn't be, but I felt it in my gut. I called the station, asked to speak with the detective in charge. I got bounced around until someone finally took me semi-seriously. Yes, the voice on the other end said, we're looking for a patient, mid-30s, gave the name Lucas, used a fake address on the intake form, no ID. We're advising all staff at St. Thomas's to stay alert and avoid contact. The detective lowered his voice. We found things. In Dr. P's office. Blood in places it shouldn't be. Symbols carved into the carpet beneath his chair. And something under his fingernails. Not human. That was 12 hours ago. I've been trying to act normal since. I finished my shift early, told the nurse I had a migraine, took the tram home looking over my shoulder the whole time. And now this. I came home and the house was dark. I live alone in a 2-story terrace. Usually it feels cozy. Not tonight. I locked the door, flicked the hallway light on. He was there, not standing, on the ceiling, pressed against it like a spider, barefoot, clothes torn, skin too pale, almost translucent now. The bruises had overtaken his limbs, crawling up his face in broken, inky veins. But it was his expression that paralyzed me. A smile so wide it stretched unnaturally, as if his cheeks were tearing from the force of it. His eyes, they were solid black now, not just the irises, all of them. Like 2 obsidian marbles reflecting my horror back at me. He didn't speak, he just moved, not like a person. His limbs twisted at angles no joint should allow, slow and jerky like a puppet handled by someone who's never seen one before. He crept across the ceiling, toward me. I wanted to scream but couldn't. My throat locked up, I stumbled backward, hands shaking, keys falling to the floor. He dropped. No sound, just thud, right in front of the door, blocking it, standing there now, head tilted, arms hanging limp, still smiling. I ran, bolted up the stairs, locked myself in the bedroom. I've barricaded it with a chair and a shelf. I don't know if it'll matter. He hasn't spoken once, but he's knocking now. Not on the door, on the walls, knock, knock, knock. Then silence. Then knocking from the other side of the room. I swear to God I heard him giggling. I called the police. They said they'd dispatch someone, but there's been a surge of emergencies. Said it'll take 30 minutes minimum. I tried to explain that a patient might have killed a psychiatrist and is now in my house. They said, try to stay calm, sir. Maybe step outside. I can't. He's everywhere. The lights keep flickering. My phone battery's at 9%. I can hear him moving in the ceiling above me now. Sometimes dragging something, sometimes whispering my name over and over, doctor. Shh. There's a scratching coming from inside the closet. I didn't check it. I didn't think to wait. Oh God. The closet door just creaked open. It's pitch black in there, but I can see something moving. Long limbs, that smile. He was never downstairs. He's been in here the whole time. Please, someone tell me what to do. I'm posting this in case I don't make it. The cops are 20 minutes away now. My bedroom door just creaked. Update. Noises have stopped. No knocking, no whispering, just silence. I think he's waiting. If you read this, please share it. And if a patient with gray eyes, blood under his nails and bruises that don't heal ever walks into your clinic, run. I never thought I'd be writing this, but I feel like I need to tell someone what's happened. Jake and I had been together for 3 years when we started talking about getting engaged. We both loved antiques, you know, items with history and stories embedded in them. Every weekend we'd hunt together through antique shops and estate sales, searching for all sorts of forgotten treasures. That's how we found the ring. The perfect ring. At least that's how it felt then. It sat in a locked case at Madame Eloise's shop downtown. A deep blue sapphire set in an intricate gold band with delicate filigree. Art Deco, unique, perfect. I knew it immediately. Jake, ever the romantic, insisted on buying it then and there. He shooed me from the store, promising to make it special. 2 weeks later, on a warm evening, he led me to our favorite park bench beneath the willow tree we always loved. He knelt, eyes bright with excitement, and presented a small velvet box. I knew what was inside before he even opened it, but when my eyes finally fell on the ring itself, my heart stuttered and I seemed to forget everything I knew. My mind went blank. "Where did you get this?" I asked, fingers hovering over the gold band. Jake grinned. "You know where?" And I did know, of course. My brain was just temporarily mush, I guess. It was the ring from Madame Eloise's shop, but inside the band something new gleamed under the lamplight. An engraving, LM and JC. I ran my thumb over the initials, Lucy M and Jake C. Jake shrugged. It was already there, fate, right? The night air seemed to press around us. Something cold curled in my stomach. "What are the odds?" I whispered. "I'm not a statistician," Jake laughed, "but I think it was meant to be." We drank champagne under the willow, and I fell asleep that night with the ring on my finger, feeling like the luckiest woman alive. Then the nightmare started. I dreamed of a bride in a blood-spattered church sobbing behind her veil. When she turned to face me, her face was bruised and tear-streaked. I woke gasping for air, my chest feeling like it was about to explode. "Bad dream?" Jake mumbled, pulling me closer. "Just nerves," I lied, glancing at the sapphire gleaming in the darkness. The next morning things got so much worse. My neighbor waved as I collected the mail. The sapphire caught the sunlight, flashing blue for just a second. 5 minutes later, her brakes failed as she backed out of her driveway. Her car plowed into an oncoming delivery truck. I watched paramedics pull her mangled body from the wreckage. I tried to convince myself it was a horrible coincidence, 1 in a billion or something, but then my boss dropped dead during a meeting later that afternoon, just moments after complimenting my ring. An aneurysm, they said. I saw how his eyes fixed on the sapphire right before blood trickled from his ears. Deep down, I knew I had been cursed by the ring I loved so much. I had become a walking omen of death. On my way home that night, still in shock, I witnessed a man glance at me, then climb up to the ledge of my apartment building and jump without hesitation. The thud his body made when it hit the pavement will haunt me forever. His dead eyes found mine in the crowd. I clutched my hand to my chest, and the sapphire felt warm against my skin, too warm. When I looked down, I noticed a faint burn mark on my skin. Around midnight, I decided it was time to remove the ring, but my finger had swollen. The band wouldn't budge at all. No amount of soap, ice, or oil could loosen it. As the days continued, so did the deaths. A barista touched my hand while returning change. Minutes later, he choked to death on a scone as I waited for my cold brew. An elderly woman who admired my ring at the grocery store was crushed beneath collapsing shelves moments later. At dinner with friends, I kept my hands hidden under the table, but Melissa insisted on seeing the ring. The moment the sapphire caught the light, a waiter carrying Cherry's Jubilee tripped. The dessert's high-proof alcohol splashed across nearby tables, igniting instantly. The entire restaurant went up in flames. In the chaos, I watched Melissa's hair ignite, her screams swallowed by the roaring inferno. Only Jake and I walked out unscathed. After 8 deaths in a week, I was desperate. I started keeping my left hand hidden whenever I was out in public, stuffing it deep into my pants or coat pockets. I also began Googling the ring online. It was such a luxurious and unique ring, I was curious if it had a history. It didn't take long to find the original owners, Lydia M. and James C. L. M. and J.C., just like our initials. The newspaper article from 1952 was brief but chilling. Local bride found slain on wedding night. The accompanying photos showed Lydia wearing my ring, and she looked just like the woman in my dreams. Something else disturbed me too. Jake had changed. His once warm brown eyes now seemed glassy and unfamiliar. Sometimes I'd catch him staring at the ring with an expression I didn't recognize. Possessive, hungry, hungry. When I mentioned the deaths, he'd shrug them off as coincidences. When I suggested we research the ring's history together, he changed the subject. I began to research alone, visiting libraries and local historical societies. I found more articles about Lydia and James. They'd been high school sweethearts. James had given Lydia the sapphire ring as a symbol of his undying love, a family heirloom passed down through generations. But on their wedding night, something had gone terribly wrong. The police found Lydia's body in their honeymoon suite, strangled. James was nowhere to be found. For weeks, the papers speculated about his whereabouts. Had he killed his bride and fled? Had they both been victims of a robbery gone wrong? 6 months later, James's body washed up on a riverbank 50 miles downstream from the bridge where his car had been found abandoned. His death was ruled a suicide. In my search, I discovered an old woman who claimed to be Lydia's cousin. She lived in a nursing home on the outskirts of town. When I visited her, she recognized the ring immediately. "You need to get rid of it," she whispered, her papery hand clutching mine. It was cursed by James's great-grandmother, a woman scorned. She wanted revenge on the family that had rejected her, so she placed a curse on the ring. It brings death to anyone who sees it, except for the wearer and their beloved. She leaned closer. "But there's a price for that protection." "What price?" I asked. "I think your souls," she said. "I can't be certain. I only know James wasn't himself after he gave Lydia that ring. It changed both of them over time. The night he killed her, his eyes were different. I had seen them myself, empty, like you were staring through a window. Like Jake's eyes now. The old woman told me how to remove the ring. It had to be done on a new moon. There was a mixture I needed to prepare, herbs and oils and other things I won't mention here. The process would be painful, but it was the only way. The next new moon, I prepared everything as I was told." Jake watched with those unfamiliar glassy eyes as I submerged my hand in the mixture. The pain was excruciating. My skin blistered on contact, but it worked. The ring loosened. With one final agonizing pull, I wrenched the ring free. My finger came with it, severed cleanly at the knuckle. Blood poured from the wound, but I felt only relief as the sapphire glowed with rage. Jake lunged for the ring, but I was faster. I dropped it into a cloth bag and tied it with red thread 7 times exactly as instructed. We drove to the old bridge at the edge of town. The bag seemed to get heavier with each mile, and I could swear I heard scratching coming from inside it. At the center of the bridge, we stood in darkness, staring at the black water below. No moon reflected on its surface. "Are you sure?" Jake asked, his voice finally his own again. I nodded, clutching my bandaged hand. "It has to end." He held the bag over the railing. For a moment, it seemed like he couldn't let go, like the bag was stuck to his hand. Then, with visible effort, Jake opened his fingers. The splash below was small. The ripples disappeared quickly. It's been 3 weeks, no accidents, no deaths. Jake is himself again, though he remembers everything. We both do. When Jake and I drive over that bridge, we both fall silent, staring at the water below. Sometimes I dream of the river bottom, of silt slowly covering the cloth bag, of water flowing endlessly over hidden things. In these dreams, I see fish swimming near the bag, then darting away suddenly. The ring is down there, waiting. Is it truly contained, or simply biding its time? When I wake from these dreams, my missing finger throbs with phantom pain, and I wonder if somewhere in the darkness of the river, a sapphire pulses an answer. I'd like to start off with an apology. If I am correct, I may just have killed you and everyone you know. Hopefully that isn't the case, but if it is, sorry. I've been working as an immunologist for the past 17 years, and I'm quite well known for my work. Throughout my life, I've lost people I cared about to disease. My mother died from tuberculosis when I was 5. My best friend died of leukemia when I was 16, and my father has recently been diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. I've always viewed it as a malicious and evil thing that robs us of our family and friends. It's for this reason that I chose to study the immune system. It's truly a fascinating thing. Our bodies are somehow incredibly resilient and terribly delicate at the same time. My goal was to contribute to the eradication of disease. Well, I suppose the same can be said for all immunologists, but I worked with a fiery hatred for pestilence and sickness. I wanted, in a sense, to get revenge on the being I had made up in my head, this evil figure I had conjured up to personify disease. I was after more than just one. I didn't want to be the man who ended cancer or AIDS. I wanted to rid humanity of the greatest threat it ever had. My goal was to end as many diseases as I possibly could with one strike. I'll keep my explanations as brief as I can. I know you didn't come here for a science lesson. The human immune system is incredibly complex and has a vast array of countermeasures it uses to kill off pathogens. However, this all relies on the first step of the process, recognition. In order for anything to happen, some immune cell needs to come into contact with the foreign body afflicting the host. This can be any number of cells: T cells, B cells, macrophages, dendritic cells, NK cells, the list goes on. Once this happens, receptors on these cells bind to specific surface proteins on the pathogen, which starts the next step of the process. The pathogen is engulfed and digested. Afterwards, the cell takes pieces of this now dead pathogen and brings it to other immune cells to activate more immune responses. After a long list of signaling pathways, the host produces antibodies which bind to the pathogens and flag them for destruction. Later, when one of the many killer cells encounters a pathogen marked by antibodies, it will be swiftly eliminated. This process can apply to all types of diseases: bacterial, viral, even cancers. So why can't we just synthetically make a bunch of antibodies and shoot them into sick people? Well, there are many reasons actually, but one of them is the issue of immune response recognition. When your immune system goes out to kill targeted cells, how does it know which cells are good and which are bad? The answer is a molecule called sialic acid. Your cells produce this on their surfaces so that even if an immune cell binds to them, it can recognize the sialic acid structures on the surface and move on from it. But some diseases, disgusting and vile as they are, have evolved to use this to their advantage. Some of the most dangerous diseases are able to coat themselves in sialic acid in order to evade immune detection. For example, influenza binds to sialic acid on respiratory cells to gain entry into your lungs. Some bacteria like Neisseria meningitidis actually steal sialic acid from their host to create a disguise. And one of the reasons cancer is so difficult to treat is that cancer cells overproduce sialic acid, effectively wearing a do not kill sign that prevents immune cells from recognizing them as threats. This allows all of them to go about their business, killing innocent people and spreading to others. To combat this, humans have developed a treatment, one mainly for cancer, using sialidase, an enzyme that breaks down sialic acid from molecules. Think of this as a chainsaw that cuts off sialic acid and allows the bad cells to be recognized by your immune system. There's only one problem with this: sialidase is not specific. It will rip off sialic acid from your own cells if it comes into contact with them. But in this enzyme, I saw the key to free us all of the burden of sickness. If I could use a vehicle to ensure that sialidase only comes into contact with non-self cells, I would be able to strip away their advantage and expose them to the immune system. And I had the perfect one. It feels strange to condense years of my life and hard work into just a few sentences. In my studies, I became deeply familiar with the measles virus, an endlessly fascinating entity. You see, measles causes infected cells to fuse together, forming massive clumps called syncytia. If I could modify the virus to carry the sialidase enzyme, these clusters would become their own undoing. As the cells fused, sialidase would strip away the sialic acid from all of them at once, leaving them completely exposed to the immune system's wrath. That's exactly what I did. It was tested on rodents a week ago and it worked perfectly. But when I tried to get this new treatment approved, I was shot down almost immediately. I was outraged. I had invented a way to eradicate a plethora of life-threatening diseases, and this miracle cure wasn't even going to be considered. Unfortunately, I took matters into my own hands. This drug was going to save my father, I knew it. So I went to the hospital he was being treated at. He's been spending most of his time sleeping. Cancer has a way of draining energy from its victims. I injected him with my treatment quickly. He didn't even wake up. Satisfied, I left the hospital and headed to the lab. The rats needed feeding, and then I could finally relax at home. Only when I saw the rats did I realize my error. In my fervor to create this miracle cure, I had made the same mistake that the human immune system does. I hadn't been specific enough. My goal was to make make the measles virus, with sialadase attached to it, bind to any foreign bodies and force them to clump together. This would then allow the enzyme to remove the sialic acid from all of the pathogens and allow them all to be recognized by the immune system. But sialadase isn't specific. It had shorn off the protein that causes the measles virus to bind. The result of this was a free-floating virus that could bind to any cell and shear off its sialic acid, making it a target for the host's immune system. The rats in their cages had partially liquefied, their bodies reduced to a putrid gelatinous slurry. Only a few fragments of bone and shredded tissue remained, barely recognizable as what had once been living creatures. A rancid mix of blood and dissolved flesh pooled at the bottom of the cages, the stench thick and suffocating. Without another thought, I rushed back to the hospital, back to my father's room, but it was too late. I'm not sure why, but it acted quickly, far more so than it had with the rats. My dad had woken from his sleep with agonizing screams. Blood ran from every orifice, his eyes, his nose, his ears and mouth. He reached out a semi-solid hand towards me. I could see the veins and muscles through his skin. As he reached out, his hand fell from his arm and splattered onto the floor by my feet. His now milky white eyes rolled into his skull as he fell back into bed, motionless. His torso caved in on itself, exposing his liquefied organs to the open air. His body was eating itself because of what I had done. Nurses and doctors rushed in and out of the room, but I knew they wouldn't be able to help. An older nurse grabbed my arm and led me outside, but I couldn't hear his words. My ears rung from what I had seen, what I had caused. I vomited in the flower bed. I didn't know what else to do, so I went home where I'm now drafting this up. There's one more detail about the measles virus that I didn't mention. It's highly contagious. In fact, in unvaccinated populations, it has a 100% infection rate. Not that a vaccine would help anymore. I've modified the virus to the point where a new vaccine would need to be developed, but judging by how fast it worked on my father, I don't think we have that kind of time. Every single one of the people who were in that hospital likely have it, me included. By tomorrow, hundreds of people will be infected. A week from now, thousands or more, but chances are I'll be dead by then. I truly hope I'm wrong, but if I'm not, I really am sorry. To anyone who finds this message, my name doesn't matter, but my story might. I am, or rather, I was a lead engineer at a top secret research facility deep beneath the ice of Antarctica. Our mission was simple: to explore and harness the power of an ancient technology buried miles below the frozen surface. What we discovered was something that should never have been awakened. The project, known as Obsidian, a codename we now know was more fitting than we ever realized, began with the discovery of a massive, perfectly preserved structure detected via satellite scans. This structure, buried under 4 miles of solid ice, was unlike anything on Earth, an impossibly smooth obsidian black pyramid emitting faint electromagnetic pulses. In December 2021, my team was dispatched to the site with cutting-edge drilling equipment to breach the ice and gain access. The project was classified at the highest levels of global security. Only a handful of people even knew it existed. As we tunneled closer, the pulses grew stronger, and our instruments started behaving erratically. Computers failed, compasses spun wildly, and even our most advanced communication systems flickered and died. On January 10th, 2022, we finally reached the pyramid's surface. The surrounding ice had an unnatural, almost glossy sheen, and the air grew thick with static electricity. Ignoring every instinct, we set up our equipment and prepared to enter. The entrance was sealed with a door made from a material that defied all analysis, neither metal nor stone. It absorbed all light, rendering it nearly invisible to the naked eye. When we finally breached it, we found an empty chamber lined with glyphs that emitted a dim, pulsating glow. At the center of the room stood a large, perfectly circular hole descending into darkness. It was around this point that things began to spiral out of control. Without warning, the glyphs started to pulse faster, and an oppressive force filled the chamber, pressing down on us as if the air itself had turned to lead. We attempted to retreat, but the hole began to emit a low thrumming noise, a sound that resonated deep within our bones. As we watched, paralyzed with terror, something began to rise from the depths. A shape of a void darker than the darkest night emerged from the hole. It was amorphous, shifting, and yet there was a terrifying sense of intelligence behind it. It filled the room with an overwhelming presence, a crushing sense of despair and doom. The surrounding air warped and twisted as the entity began to take a vaguely humanoid form. We couldn't move, couldn't speak. The only sound was the relentless hum, growing louder and more unbearable with each passing second. Then, in a voice that bypassed our ears and spoke directly into our minds, it said, "You have trespassed into the domain of the eternal void. You are the first to awaken us in eons, and for this your world will suffer. We are the ones who came before, and we shall reclaim what was lost. You cannot stop what has begun." The entity dissipated into the air, leaving us with a chilling coldness that seeped into our very souls. We fled, abandoning all equipment and sealing the entrance behind us, but it was too late. The pyramid began to emit pulses of energy at an ever-increasing rate, and we realized with dawning horror that it was a beacon, a call to something far beyond our comprehension. As I write this, I am the last surviving member of my team. The others are gone, vanished without a trace, consumed by whatever we unleashed. The facility is on lockdown, but I fear it's only a matter of time before the energy pulses reach their peak and whatever lies on the other side answers the call. I don't know how much longer I have, but you need to understand, this isn't just a threat to us, but to all of humanity. Do not attempt to access the obsidian pyramid. Do not go near it. Know that the end we have set in motion cannot be undone. If you receive this, pray that it's not too late. I barged through my front door and sprinted up the stairs. I made a run for the bedroom door before kicking it open. "I know he's in here. Where are you hiding him this time?" I screamed. My wife Susan was shocked to see me back from work and was sitting in bed reading a book. "I don't know what you are talking about, honey. I've been here all morning." I could tell from the red glow on my wife's cheeks and the beads of sweat rolling down her forehead she was doing more than reading a book. "I know that scumbag is here. I can still smell his stinking aftershave." I grabbed the blankets and ripped them off the bed. Susan tried her best to cover her naked body. "It's 2 in the afternoon. Why are you in bed naked?" Susan looked like a rabbit caught in a headlight. She stuttered as her brain tried to make up a plausible answer. I began tearing the room apart when suddenly I heard the sound of labored breathing coming from the closet. I felt a rage of red mist descend upon me before whipping open the closet doors. As I drove back to work, I couldn't get the image of Mason Bradley and his fat gut on top of my wife. Intrusive thoughts about my wife's infidelities permeated my mind as I drove my truck. At 37, my life wasn't where I expected it to be. My dreams of running my own company were as broken as the beat-up pickup truck I used to drive to work. My truck rumbled up to the gates of the steel mill. The security guard at the gate barely acknowledged my existence as the truck roared past him. As I turned into the car park, I noticed my boss Big Ed waiting for me. As I got out of my truck, Big Ed came scurrying over. For a man who ran a $1 million company, he always looked as if he was out panhandling for his next meal. His slacks were 2 sizes too big and he wore the same t-shirt every day. "What are you doing tomorrow, Jack?" I hated how Big Ed spoke to me. He had a habit of spitting after every sentence and would sometimes spit directly at me. I was going to surprise my wife tomorrow and take her somewhere nice. Big Ed hitched his slacks up onto his gut. "Listen here now, Jack. My car's been giving me some trouble and I need you to service her. Couldn't you get someone else to do it?" I could tell he was getting annoyed with my attitude. "If you want your job Monday, you will do what you're told." He had me over a barrel and knew I couldn't afford to lose the only job the town had to offer. "I'll be over first thing in the morning." I arrived at Ed's dilapidated mansion. Ed was outside with his car swooning over her like it was some beautiful young woman. His face lit up as he ran his hands over the bonnet of the truck. "Be gentle with her, she's all I got," said Ed. Ed looked slightly smarter than his usual unkempt manner. "You got a date, Ed?" "When the cats are away, the mice will play," said Ed as he gave me a mischievous wink. Ed pulled a red handkerchief from his back pocket and wiped the sweat from his forehead. "I see one scratch on her and I will snap your neck." I was weary from a long day babysitting Ed's car. All I wanted to do was throw my feet up and have a nice cold beer. I stepped in my front door and was suddenly hit by a familiar smell. It smelt like Big Ed's nasty cologne, but I was too tired to take much notice. My body ached as I grabbed a beer from the kitchen before collapsing onto my chair. As I sat there, sipping beer and reevaluating my life's predicament, predicaments, I noticed something sticking from the armrest of my couch. I walked over and picked up the red piece of cloth, the same red piece of cloth Big Ed used to wipe the beady sweat from his grubby forehead. I unfolded the cloth, and to my dismay, there was Ed's name embroidered in the hanky. I was heartbroken and furious. I knew what it meant, and all I wanted to do was tear the house down with my bare hands, but I knew better than to let my anger get the best of me. My eyes welled up as I sped down the country road. I turned the radio up full blast to drown out my intrusive thoughts. I was too embroiled in a battle with my conciseness to notice the dark figure walking in the middle of the road. By the time I noticed it was too late, I slammed on the brakes and covered my eyes before the car came to a halt. To my relief, I couldn't find any signs of someone injured. I convinced myself stress was making me go crazy. As I tried jumping back in my truck, I heard someone approaching from behind. Having trouble, buddy? I felt a cold chill up my spine. Something was telling me to run, but my legs had turned to jelly from fear. A dark figure stepped out from the shadows of the looming trees overhead. I thought I had hit someone with my truck, I nervously explained. I couldn't make out who I was talking to. All I could see was an outline of a tall, dark figure. I hear you're having trouble with your wife. Do I know you? I nervously asked. Suddenly, the dark figure came into focus, revealing an old man. He took something from his pocket before handing it to me. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was Big Ed's red handkerchief. How did you... I began stuttering. What is it you desire? Asked the old man. Suddenly, a strange feeling swept over me. A feeling of intense euphoria crept up from my toes, flooding my brain. I wished every man who sleeps with my wife would get sick and die a slow, painful death. The words seemed to come out of my mouth as if someone else was saying. Suddenly, everything began to spin, and before I knew it, I was back in my truck. I reluctantly drove into work after spending a night in a dingy motel. All I wanted to do was punch Big Ed in his fat face, but with my marriage on the rocks, I knew I couldn't afford it. When I arrived, I was surprised to see Mason Bradley wasn't at his station. I didn't give it much thought until I saw Big Ed coming from the bathroom, looking like death warmed up. Hey Ed, you don't look so good. Ed stood there looking pale as a ghost, trying to keep the contents of his stomach from ejecting from his mouth. I think it was something I ate, he explained as I took a step back from him. Has this anything to do with Bradley being out? I asked. Yeah, he was too sick to make it in today. Must be a bug doing the rounds. Over the next few days, I watched Big Ed get weaker until there was no sign of him. I had gotten word that Mason Bradley had died, and from what I was told, Big Ed wasn't far behind. Since Big Ed wasn't in, we knocked off early. As I drove home, I stopped at the local gas station to pick up some beers. Phil, the owner, was at the counter looking like he was about to pass out. You alright, Phil? You're looking a bit pale there, buddy. Phil covered his mouth, trying his best not to puke all over the counter. I'm after picking up this bug that's going around. It couldn't be, I thought to myself as I suddenly remembered the strange encounter I had the other night, the one I was sure was just a strange dream. You look after yourself, Phil, and get yourself to a doctor. Will you give my love to that beautiful wife of yours and tell her I'll drop over her magazines once I feel better, said Phil before dashing for the bathroom. As I drove into my driveway, I noticed Mrs. Stevens standing outside her house looking distraught. What's wrong, Anne? I asked. It's Mike. They took him to the hospital. Who took him? Mr. Stevens was too distraught to get her words out. Men in hazmat suits. I felt the familiar feeling of despair rise from the pit of my stomach. Who else got sick? Bob, Tony from across the road, the guy who delivers the milk. They're dropping like flies. Days went by and news of men getting sick and dying all over town continued to trickle in. Suddenly, I was hit with the realization that the man I met a few weeks ago wasn't a figment of my imagination. I wrestled with the guilt of everyone dying and the heartbreak of my wife's infidelity. I didn't want people dying, and if this was my fault, I needed to fix it. I got in my truck and began driving the same road as before. I was overwhelmed with the thoughts of people dying and the guilt and grief it brought with it. As I drove, I suddenly spotted the old man sitting by the roadside. I slammed on the brakes and jumped from my truck. I ran to the old man before dropping to my knees. Please, I beg you, whatever you have done, you need to take it back. The old man gave me a confused look. But it was what you desired. Why would you want to take it back? I was upset, but I didn't want people to die. Please, it's not what I desire, I cried. The old man put his hand on my shoulder. What is it you truly desire? All I want is my wife to love me and only me, I begged. Suddenly, I was overcome with that same feeling of euphoria. My world began to spin before I was suddenly back in my truck and the old man was nowhere to be seen. As I walked in my front door, Susan was standing there waiting for me. She had a look on her face I'd never seen before. She ran and threw her arms around me before kissing me passionately. I love you so much, Jack. Can you please forgive me? Of course I forgive you, I always do. My wife's face lit up, and for the first time, I could feel a genuine sense of love from her, a feeling I always desired. From now on, you're the only man I want and need, she said as she led me upstairs to the bedroom. That night, we made passionate love as if we were the only two people that existed in the world. After we finished, we spent the rest of the night cuddling and planning for a better future together. The following morning, I woke with a splitting headache. As the days followed, I was stuck to the toilet, puking my guts up. As I got weaker, the terrifying realization of the first wish hit me like a ton of bricks. I write this as I'm in the final throes of death as a warning to others. Be careful what you wish for. I've worked prison security my entire life. A few months ago, I got a promotion, great pay, full accommodations, and one simple assignment: monitor the facility's camera system. No questions asked. I was told the prison and its inhabitants were classified, even to me. The pay was too good, the on-site housing was free, and I had a family to support, so I didn't ask. Now alarms are blaring all around me, and I don't know what I just saw, but I can't keep it classified. I have reviewed the footage for the 5th time, my hands trembling as I paused it on the prison's head of security, Harris, and his panicked face. The alarms and flashing red lights of the control room filled the screen, disorienting even as a mere observer. Ah, crap, Harris's voice cracked through the audio feed. The camera zoomed in slightly on the screen he was staring at. The prison cell layout, a grid of green icons, had one glaring anomaly. A single cell on floor 4 in the far corner flashed an angry red. Unauthorized release blinked relentlessly in tandem with the deafening alarms. He grabbed the desk phone next to him with a speed that spoke to both his training and his fear. All units to containment floor now. His voice boomed over the speakers. We have a breach. Repeat, we have a breach in cell 4 corner. Code black. Code black. The words reverberated in my mind, the first in the facility's history. Harris didn't have time to dwell on the weight of it, and neither did I. I fast-forwarded the footage, watching guards scramble into action, weapons drawn, their postures rigid with tension. The control room camera shook slightly as Harris grabbed his rifle, slammed in a fresh magazine, and chambered a round. He was preparing to join them when gunfire erupted through the audio feed. I rewound and replayed that moment, trying to pinpoint the exact second the chaos began. The reinforced glass gave me a clear view of the containment wing as muzzle flashes illuminated the hallway below. I could see the flash of gunfire, but not the target. As fast as it began, it was over. Harris's movements faltered. His battle-hardened composure cracked as a low, guttural noise filtered through the intercom, something between a growl and a laugh. I shivered even behind my screen. Harris stepped out of the control room, entering the pitch-black hallway. The rotating red lights painted his shadow in a macabre dance across the walls. Guards rushed past him, forming a defensive line, their voices barely audible over the alarms. "With you, sir. What are your orders?" one shouted. I watched Harris take a breath, his hand tightening on his rifle. "Safety's off. Shoot to kill." His voice carried a forced confidence, but the trembling of his fingers told a different story. They moved forward deeper into the containment wing. I switched to another camera angle, tracking their progress. The cells lining the walls seemed to come alive with the sounds of screaming, laughing, and pounding as the other prisoners reacted to whatever had been unleashed. They rounded the corner and my breath hitched. The camera captured the massive steel-reinforced door to cell 4 corner, now twisted and dangling from a single hinge. A jagged gash split its surface, revealing the core beneath. One of the guards whispered, "What in the world could do that?" I'd asked myself the same question. Harris stepped forward, slipping on something. The camera zoomed in on the dark puddle beneath his boots. He crouched, touched it, then brought his fingers to his nose. Even without being there, I could almost smell the metallic tang of blood as Harris recoiled. He activated his flashlight, aiming it into the cell. The beam revealed carnage that made me pause the video, bile rising in my throat. Blood coated the walls, limbs and chunks of flesh strewn across the floor. The stench of iron seemed to seep through the screen. One of the guards let out a dry heave, but it was Harris's reaction that haunted me the most. He gagged, visibly shaken, his usual stoic demeanor cracking at the scene around him. The footage jumped as he spun, rifle aimed at a hand taking a weak grip on his ankle. One of his men lay on the floor, torso intact but legs gone, intestines strung along the floor behind him. The man's voice crackled through the audio. Behind you. Harris turned, the other guards following his lead. The camera angle shifted to capture what they saw. My blood ran cold, a child, or something resembling one. It clung to the wall like an arachnid, limbs contorted, black eyes hollow and lifeless. Its mouth twisted into a grin that stretched impossibly wide, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. I froze the frame, staring at the monstrous visage. It didn't move until Harris did, his voice a choked whisper. "What in the fu—" The creature screeched, the sound shrill and inhuman before lunging. The room erupted into chaos. The guards opened fire, their muzzle flashes briefly illuminating the scene. Screams filled the audio feed, cutting off one by one until only static and the distant wail of alarms remained. The camera feed from the hallway flickered. When it stabilized, the scene was eerily quiet. Blood dripped from the walls and pooled on the floor. Then came the sound, a slow, deliberate scrape, thud, scrape, thud. The creature emerged, dragging Harris's lifeless body behind it. His blood painted a crimson trail on the cold steel floor like a signature written of gore. It approached the far wall where a sealed door stood. I rewound and played that segment repeatedly, unable to look away as the creature raised Harris by his matted hair. His head lolled and a weak cough escaped his lips, blood splattering the wall. He was still alive. The door scanner activated with a mechanical ping, a red laser trying to scan his face. Harris's final cry sent shivers down my spine. "No," he said as he tried to keep his eyes sealed tightly. Jagged fingers slithered along his forehead and curled under his eyelids, prying them open, forcing the scanner to accept his retina. Blood and tears flowed down his face as he screamed. The door unlocked with a hiss of decompressed air, large locks unlatching with a clang. The creature discarded Harris with a sickening thud, his head colliding with the wall. I had to stop the footage as his skull gave way, blood and brain spraying the lens, but I forced myself to finish it. The last moments showed the creature crawling through the now open door, slick with gore, leaving behind a facility drowning in silence and death, its demented form slowly morphing into that of an innocent child. I sat back, the weight of what I'd seen pressing down on me. My hands hovered over the keyboard, unsure of what to type or who to send this to. There were no protocols for this, no contingency plans for whatever it was. All I could think was, it's free. It looks like a child. It is out there amongst all of us. This is my only warning to you all. I will get thrown in prison for posting this, but it doesn't matter. I'll be safer in there than free with that thing out there. God save us all. I don't know if I should be posting this, but screw it. It's been over 20 years, and no one ever believed me anyway. Maybe someone out there can explain what I saw that night. Back in 2003, I worked security at a government-funded research site. Not gonna say where, but let's just say it was out in the middle of nowhere, far enough that if something went wrong, no one would hear the screams. The facility was a fortress, barbed wire, keycard access everywhere, armed patrols at night. Most of the time it was boring. Scientists came in, scientists left, and we were just there to make sure nobody messed with their work. But there was one project that always gave me the creeps. They called it Project Chimera. Even the other guards didn't know much about it, just that it involved biological stuff and that the scientists working on it never looked well rested. It was a quiet night shift. I was doing my usual rounds, walking the perimeter of the high security labs. Then my radio crackled. Containment breach in Lab 3, non-human interference. I remember thinking, what the hell does that mean? It wasn't unauthorized personnel, it wasn't security risk, it was non-human. I ran toward Lab 3, and when I got there, I saw two scientists standing outside looking absolutely terrified. Through the glass observation window I saw it, a deer. A stupid deer was standing inside the secure laboratory, right in the middle of all their high-tech equipment, its hooves tapping against the floor. It looked wrong. Not sick, not injured, just wrong. Its movements were jerky, its breathing was too slow. Its eyes were milky white, and I swear to God, for a second, I thought it was looking directly at me. One of the scientists, Dr. Nakamura, I think, was practically hyperventilating. She kept muttering something like, "It's interacting with the Matrix. This wasn't supposed to happen." Then the lights flickered, and everything went to hell. There was this low humming noise, like a power station warming up, but deeper, more alive. The air felt thick, like walking through syrup. The deer just stood there, its body twitching twitching slightly and the machines around it started sparking. Then, for a split second, it wasn't a deer anymore. I don't know how to explain it. It was still there, but its shape was warping, like it was being pulled apart and put back together at the same time. I could see other things inside it, patterns, shapes that didn't belong in a living creature. The scientists were screaming at each other, trying to shut the system down. I grabbed my radio and yelled, "We have a serious problem in Lab 3. But the second I said that, the deer snapped its head toward me so fast I heard its neck crack. And then it was gone. No explosion, no dramatic escape, just gone, like someone had flicked a switch and erased it from reality. The humming stopped, the machines went dead, the air felt normal again. They shut down the lab immediately. The higher-ups came in the next morning, cleared everything out, and told us not to ask questions. I overheard one of the researchers whispering that they found something left behind where the deer had been standing. A residue, some kind of organic material that didn't match anything they had on record. But no one ever explained what happened to the deer. They told us it was a security failure, that the deer had somehow wandered in through a ventilation shaft, which was bullcrap because I had walked that perimeter for months and there was no way a full-grown deer made it past all that security. A few weeks later, Project Chimera was shut down completely. The lab was sealed off and the lead researchers were reassigned or just disappeared. I put in my resignation not long after, but sometimes I still dream about that night, about the way the air felt wrong, about the deer's eyes, milky white, staring straight through me, and the way for just a second I swear it knew what I was thinking. The teacher knew from the look on my face I had forgotten my homework again. "What's your excuse this time, Toby?" she asked. "I'm sorry, miss. I left it on the kitchen table. I'll have it tomorrow, I promise." She had heard it many times before. It was the same old song and dance, and no matter what I said, it didn't stop me from getting detention. When I got home, my mother was waiting for me. The school had already phoned her, and I knew by the look on her face I was in big trouble. This is the third time this month the school rang me. "I'm sorry, Mom. I did leave my homework at home. Miss Henchley's just out to get me. She sent me to my room after she told me I was grounded for the week. I hated being grounded because all I had was my sister Cindy to talk to. Mrs. Henchley gave me detention again. I hate her. I wish somebody would teach her a lesson," I explained to Cindy. Cindy looked at me with a big smile on her face. "I can ask my friend to help you. Millie is great and does everything I ask her to do." My sister was annoying, but I found it cute that she had an imaginary friend. Later, I was jolted from my sleep, and Cindy was sitting by the dressing table with her back turned to me. "Get back to bed, Cindy. It's late. If Mom finds you out of bed, I'll get in trouble." I hated sharing a room with my sister who slept on the top bunk. When my dad died, we had to move to a smaller house. My mom said it was temporary, but it's been 2 years now, and I am still stuck in a tiny room with her. When I woke the following morning, my sister was already downstairs. I walked over to the dresser and picked up a drawing my sister must have drawn. My sister's drawings were usually cute. She likes unicorns and fairies, but this one was disturbing. It depicted a woman lying on the floor next to a busted up car, and she had red stuff coming from her head. I arrived at school that day to find Miss Henchley wasn't behind her desk. Instead, we had a substitute teacher who told us she was filling in after Miss Henchley was involved in a terrible car accident. It was then I remembered the picture Cindy had drawn. It was just a coincidence, I was sure of it, but I couldn't help feeling guilty. Either way, I wished this on her. The only upside to Miss Henley's accident was not having to do detention and go home. On the way home, I bumped into Damian Morsley. He was on my case all year, and every time he saw me, he gave me a beating, and this time was no different. When I got home all bloody and bruised, I went straight to my room. I didn't want my mother to make a big deal about it. I didn't want to give Damian more reason to hate me. "What happened to you?" my sister asked as she stepped into the room. "Nothing happened to me," I said as I scolded my sister for asking too many questions. "Was it that mean kid Damian again?" she asked in a concerned tone. "Yes, but you can't say anything to Mom. She will go ballistic." My sister looked at me again with that mischievous smile. "Don't worry, Millie will fix him." The next morning, I woke to find another drawing left on the dresser. This picture was even more disturbing than the last. It showed a kid lying on the floor with what appeared to be a knife sticking from his stomach and a man standing over him. For the first time, I was hoping Damian was in class, but there was no sign of him. As the day went on, rumors started spreading that Damian's father was arrested for doing something terrible to him. On the way home, I decided to take a detour past his house. I was shocked to find his house surrounded by police tape and people in white suits in the garden. A kid on a bike was standing across from the house, and when I asked him what happened, he confirmed my biggest fear, that Damien was murdered by his father. It couldn't be. I refused to believe it, but it happening twice was too much of a coincidence. I ran home and called Cindy up to the bedroom. "Cindy, you need to stop this imaginary friend business. I don't know how you're doing it, but people are getting hurt," I shouted. I could see the tears well up in her eyes. "But Millie's real, she is not imaginary. You wait and see," she said as she broke down crying before running out of the room. That night I fell asleep feeling guilty about shouting at my sister. I tossed and turned from a restless sleep before I was jolted awake. My sister was sitting at the dresser again, so I shouted at her to get back into bed, but she ignored me and kept on drawing. "Who are you talking to?" said a voice from above me. Startled, I turned to see my sister still in her bed, but when I turned back, the girl at the dressing table was gone. I walk over to the dresser only to find another drawing. I picked it up and a feeling of dread crept up my spine as I looked at the drawing. It was a picture of someone impaled on spikes with blood pouring from them at the bottom of a canyon. I feel the blood drain from my body. Tomorrow is our annual school trip to the Grand Canyon. He was only gone for 2 days, said he needed to clear his head, so he packed light and headed up into the Wintas with his usual gear. No big deal, he's done it before, but this time when he came back, something was off. It started with how he walked in. No announcement, no "I'm back." Just opened the door, set his pack down, and stood in the kitchen like he forgot what it was for. I was at the table, mid-bite. He looked at me and smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Good trip?" I asked. He nodded, still smiling. That smile didn't drop once the whole night. Not when he told me about the mountain lion tracks near his campsite. Not when I noticed he was wearing my sweatshirt, the one he hates. Not even when I asked what trail he took and he said, "North Ridge." There is no North Ridge, not here. That night I couldn't sleep. Something about how he moved felt wrong. Too smooth, too studied. At one point I got up to check the locks and caught a glimpse of him in the hallway mirror. He was just standing in the dark, staring at it. Not at his reflection, at the space beside it. The next morning I found a dead bird on the porch. Not torn apart, just laid out neatly like a gift. He said he didn't put it there. Then he asked if I remembered when our mom died. The thing is, she's still alive. I waited until he went out back. He said he wanted to feel the sun, but just stood in the middle of the yard, arms hanging loosely at his sides, face tilted upward like he was trying to remember what warmth felt like. That gave me maybe 10 minutes. I went straight for his pack. It looked normal at first. His knife, half-used water bladder, trail snacks he didn't touch. But when I unzipped the bottom pouch, I found something he would have never brought home. A lock of hair, tied with red thread, dry, brittle. Not his color, not mine. It looked old, like it had been buried in salt or ash. Underneath it was a scrap of parchment. Something drawn in charcoal, rough circles layered with jagged lines. Stick figures warped around a central shape. I didn't recognize the symbol, but the longer I stared, the more I felt like I should. When I turned it over, a single word was scrawled in the corner in tiny, frantic handwriting: "Return." I barely had time to zip the pack shut before I heard the back door open. He stepped inside, eyes still fixed on the ceiling like something might be living just above it. "You been in my bag?" he asked calmly. I lied, said number. He smiled, that smile. It stayed frozen while he poured himself a glass of water, gulped it down too fast, then poured another. His throat made no sound as he swallowed. Later that night, I woke up to him humming a song we used to sing when we were little. Only half the melody was wrong. Notes bent in places they shouldn't bend. The words didn't rhyme anymore. And when I peeked down the hallway, I saw him standing at my bedroom door, back turned and not moving, just listening. He didn't say anything when I asked what he was doing. He just walked away. In the morning, he was already at the kitchen table when I got up. No coffee, just sitting. He looked at me with that too wide smile and said, "Why'd you lie, little brother?" He asked why I lied. I didn't answer. I just stood there, heartbeat hammering behind my ribs, wondering how long he'd known, if he saw me touch the pack, if he'd ever really turned his back at all. He didn't press the question, just smiled and went back to staring at the table. Later he left again. No word, no jacket, just walked out into the tree line and vanished like he'd always belonged there. This time I didn't check the pack. I waited, and after midnight he came back. His hands were covered in dirt, shirt torn, no blood, just wrong, like it wasn't made for his body anymore, like his limbs had started to stretch beneath the seams. He didn't say anything, just walked past me and went straight to the basement. That's when I heard it, knocking, but not from the door, from inside the pack, slow, wet, rhythmic, like knuckles dragging against plastic. I opened it. The first thing I saw was the hair again, in, matted now, damp with something dark. Beneath it, something wrapped in a tattered gray cloth. I should have stopped there, I didn't. I reached in and pulled it free. It was a jar, sealed with wax and twine. Inside was a mouth, not a full face, just a mouth twisted in a silent scream, gums torn back, lips stitched closed with animal sinew, but it was breathing. The glass fogged up every few seconds. It was trying to speak. Then I realized something. It looked like mine. I dropped it. The jar didn't break. It just rolled to the edge of the floor and sat there, vibrating softly. Then from the basement his voice called up, except it wasn't really his, it was mine. Low, hollow, almost like he was trying it on for the first time. Why'd you go through my things, little brother? I didn't answer. I was too busy watching the jar. It was smiling now. In October 1978, Philadelphia police responded to a dead body call at an abandoned theater. They arrived on scene to discover most of a corpse of a young woman on the stage. Her hands and feet were bound. At some point post-mortem, the perpetrator had decapitated the victim and stitched the head of a bald man onto her neck. Heavy stage makeup had been applied to the man's face. His mouth was sewed shut. When one of the responding officers knelt down to inspect these sutures, the corpse's eyes opened. The body shuddered to life, stretching until the bindings broke. The amalgam rose unsteadily to its feet, dipped into a formal bow, and began to move. The braver of the two officers grabbed the corpse, believing it to be a hoax of some kind. He grabbed it by the throat with such force that he tore the sutures attaching the man's head to the woman's neck. Now only partially attached, the head flopped to the side. The officer recoiled, and the corpse continued to move as though nothing had happened. At this point, someone yelled, "Stop it, you're interrupting him." The speaker was a young girl of approximately 10 years old, sitting at the highest point in the auditorium, a crumbling balcony with no visible point of egress. The corpse paid her no attention and began whirling feverishly around the stage. The head was still only partially detached, but the corpse seemed unaware. Per their later testimony, the police officers slowly realized they were watching a one-man reenactment of a murder. As the gruesome performance carried on, the little girl in the corner began to cry with steadily increasing emotion. Her weeping finally culminated in a wail when the corpse mimed sawing his own head off. He pulled his head off, sutures snapping loudly as they parted through the flesh, then tucked it under his arm and ran backstage and out of sight. Despite the distance between the theater and AHH Nascu, the Harlequin, by all accounts secure in his cell inside the facility, expressed knowledge of this incident. He provided staff with the address of the theater and told them, "My son is performing there tonight, not one of his best unfortunately, but I'll tell him you're coming if you like." Personnel were immediately dispatched to the theater. By the time personnel arrived, 2 days had passed. They obtained the relevant police reports. Among other things, they learned that officers fled the scene without recovering the young girl since she was unreachable on the crumbling balcony. Although the officers returned with reinforcements, the dancing corpse was nowhere to be found. Neither was the child. But when agency personnel entered the theater during their investigation, both the girl and the dancing corpse were back inside. Personnel quickly realized they had arrived toward the end of the performance. The child was sobbing so loudly that she inadvertently masked the sounds of their entry. They concealed themselves accordingly, taking refuge in a small alcove near the back of the auditorium, and watched as the corpse, which in keeping with the police reports was a woman's body with a man's head sewn on, continued to dance. Shortly after their arrival, the corpse completed its performance and retreated backstage. Approximately 2 minutes later, a man with a face identical to that of the head sewn onto the woman's corpse returned on stage, visibly weeping. In his arms was the woman's corpse, now headless. Chest heaving silently, he gave a deep bow. As agents watched, the crying child bolted on stage and hugged the man, at which point the agents made themselves known. The man vanished backstage. When agents attempted to follow, the child interfered. By the time she was restrained, the man was nowhere to be found. Resigned, they returned to interrogate the girl, who was still standing on stage. She refused to provide her name, but was willing to answer other questions. When asked what the corpse had been doing, the girl answered, "He's showing me what Randall did." When asked if the entity was Randall, she shook her head. When asked who the man was, she said, "Pantomime. He taught me how to act." Finally, when asked why Pantomime would show her such a terrible thing, she said, "Because he's sorry." She refused to provide any additional information. When the agents attempted to take her into custody, Pantomime reappeared and attacked them with catastrophic results, allowing her to escape. Once she she was no longer on site, Pantomime transformed. He became docile and even expressed regret in a non-verbal manner for the injuries he inflicted on the agents. He then waited obediently for additional personnel to arrive and came into agency custody without further incident. When asked why, he wrote a simple answer: "Because my father can't get me if I go with you." Investigation post-arrest showed that Pantomime's stomach contained partially digested bone matter and meat from a human victim. When agency personnel removed his mouth sutures, they discovered that his tongue was missing. Experimentation shows that Pantomime is able to remove and reattach his head and limbs at will. He is able to attach his head and limbs onto dead bodies. Pantomime maintains control over any limb attached to another individual. For example, if his head is attached to someone else, he has complete control over that body until decomposition compromises the structures. Additionally, Pantomime has the ability to project mental images and fantasies into reality for limited amounts of time. He can only do this after consuming human brain tissue. Pantomime's most frequently projected scenes consist of himself and a young woman. Nothing of note ever happens in these scenes. Pantomime's tongue has been observed to reappear and disappear in apparently random fashion. It should be noted that on November 26, 2024, Pantomime's tongue reappeared and he asked to speak to Commander R. Wingeride. Pantomime disclosed largely non-specific knowledge of a plot between the Harlequin and unknown agency personnel. This disclosure, combined with the return of Pantomime's ability to speak, prompted administration to schedule an interview with the agency's specialized interviewer with the goal of obtaining additional details about this plot. It should be noted that Pantomime rarely speaks. Nevertheless, he can write and does so extensively with little prompting. The caveats with Pantomime's writing are as follows. His writings take the form of stage plays, complete with character dialogue and stage directions. Every one of Pantomime's works is titled All the World's a Stage. The Harlequin is a recurring figure in Pantomime's plays. The relationship between Pantomime and the Harlequin is not understood. Pantomime consistently refuses to elaborate. The Harlequin describes their relationship thus: "My son sang most beautifully in my city, bright." Pantomime's many plays are primarily a variation on a theme. They follow the life of Pantomime as he forms a friendship with a young woman named Sarita. The plays are always told through Sarita's perspective. Sarita is a poverty-stricken woman who is bullied mercilessly both at home and at work. Sarita's childhood dream is to be an actress, although she knows it will never happen due to her unattractiveness and her lack of talent. But the dream doesn't die. As stated in one of the most notable lines of the play, this dream burns on in defiance of reality. One day, Sarita finds an abandoned theater. She begins to spend her free time there, twirling around on stage and acting out scenes in private, far from critical eyes. But unbeknownst to her, Pantomime lives in the theater and he loves to watch her. One day, she catches him spying on her. Rather than running away, she chases him through the theater until she corners him backstage. They form a friendship. Sarita and Pantomime spend their afternoons acting together. Something strange happens when they're on stage. Sarita changes, becoming more beautiful, and the scenes they act out start to become real. She describes it as an enchantment, a real-life fantasy world that evaporates at the curtain call. What Sarita doesn't know is that Pantomime lives in the theater because it is used as a dumping ground by a killer. The stream of bodies provides Pantomime with a steady supply of human bones and human brains through which he derives the energy required to briefly project his and Sarita's scenes into reality. One day, Sarita's friend Debbie disappears. Sarita goes to Pantomime's theater, bursting inside just in time to see Pantomime biting into Debbie's head. Sarita believes Pantomime is the killer and runs away, never to return. After her departure, Pantomime cries silently until the Harlequin appears. Note: alone of the characters in Pantomime's plays, the Harlequin speaks in iambic pentameter. In his writings, Pantomime's iambic pentameter is flawless. The Harlequin also speaks in iambic pentameter in the interview transcribed below. However, the interviewer noted multiple flaws in either meter or stressed syllables in the Harlequin's iambic pentameter as verbally related by Pantomime. Whether this is relevant is not known. The Harlequin asks, "Remember how you sang so beautifully for gods and monsters in my bright city?" Pantomime only weeps. The Harlequin tells Pantomime that he'll take him back to the city bright if he doesn't find Sarita and consume her head. He retreats backstage, leaving Pantomime to weep until curtain. The agency notes that Pantomime exhibited significant psychological distress when he learned that the Harlequin is also incarcerated at the Pantheon. Interview subject: Pantomime. Classification 7 string, non-cooperative / indestructible / agnosto / constant / substantial / hemetheos. Interviewer Raquel B. Date November 28, 2024. She was an ugly girl, but so what? I wanted to give her the world. Only I didn't have the world. I only had what I had, which was less than nothing. I knew from the second I saw her that she was perfect for me. I've never told anyone this before because I hate the way it sounds, but from the very start I wanted to make all her dreams come true. I wanted to be her dream come true. It was a scary feeling, real scary, especially because strictly speaking she was way too young for me. But that wasn't scariest, not even close. Scariest was feeling that way in the first place. Freaked me out pretty bad and it made me act weird at first. Yeah, looking back I was pretty weird about it for a bit, but she didn't hold it against me. She was such a good girl. We worked nights at the arena, mostly after the crowds left, breaking down the setups, prepping the place for tomorrow's show, scrubbing beer and soda and popcorn and half-eaten hot dogs and puke and God knew what else off the stands. Sometimes we'd pick through the lost and found bins on our breaks, especially when the boss wasn't around. He wasn't around on the holidays, so we stole a lot of stuff leading up to Thanksgiving and Christmas. She called those lost and found bins our special Christmas tree. No one ever knew what we were talking about. It felt great having those inside jokes with her. During hockey season, we'd turn on the spotlights and go slipping and sliding all over the ice. She called it primitive ice skating, but mostly it was just falling. I didn't care. She was a dreamer. She told about all her dreams. Moving to California to be either a movie star or a beach bum, depending on how tired she was feeling that day, or moving to New York City to work at an art museum, going to college to learn how to do something, that's what she always said, I just want to learn something, or getting a job at the police department to get benefits for her sisters, learning to bartend so she could make tips, or how to sew so she could make costumes for her cat, auditioning for the star role in the community theater, or writing a book just so she could say she'd written a book. I liked when she talked about her dreams with me, felt like it meant something. She was such a good girl, happy all the time, smiles all around, helpful even when being helpful hurt her. She was also kinda, I don't know how to say it, a tiny bit bad, no, not bad, wicked. She was kind of a little bit wicked, but that just made her even better for me. And she was already perfect for me. She always made me feel good things. Before her, I wasn't the best at feeling good things, but she changed that, and it was great. When you feel good things, you eventually think good things too. And me, I was feeling good and thinking good for probably the first time in years. It was all because of her, because she was such a good girl. Me though, I wasn't a good guy. She didn't know that. I used to have nightmares about her finding out. Isn't that crazy? Literal nightmares. I don't know what I would have done if she'd known how good I wasn't. She wouldn't have showed me her special Christmas tree or taken me slipping and sliding all over the ice with me if she'd known. She definitely wouldn't have been my best friend if she'd have known. So I'm real glad she didn't know. Like I told you, I knew even before I said a word to her that I wanted to give her the world. You know how screwed up that is? Feeling that way when there's nothing you can do about it, knowing you'd burn the world down for someone but never even getting a chance to buy the match you need to do it. She was an ugly girl, yeah, but it didn't matter to me. That's not the problem. That's the opposite of a problem. That's love. The problem was there were other people that didn't matter too, and one of them didn't need to buy a match because he owned the match factory. I was nice about it, I really was. Not all the time, of course. Not even most of the time. Not on the way to work, not on the way back home. Definitely not at home. Not in private, not in my thoughts, not anywhere on the inside. But when I was with my girl in the arena breaking down the sets and preparing for tomorrow's show and cleaning beer and soda pop and God knows what else off the stands, when we were sitting down around our special Christmas tree and when we were slip sliding all over the under spotlights so hot they made the ice melt a little under our feet, I was nice about it. I didn't even have to nice for too long because that rich jerk broke her heart. He told her she was a good girl but she wasn't for him, wasn't sophisticated enough, wasn't pretty enough, just plain wasn't enough for his family. And guys like him, they need girls who are enough for their families. I was sad about it. I really was. Not all the time. Not even most of the time. Not on the way to work. Not on the way back home. Definitely not at home. Not in private. Not in my thoughts. Not anywhere on the inside. But when I was with my girl in the arena breaking down the sets and preparing for tomorrow's show and cleaning beer and soda pop and God knows knows what else off the stands, when we were sitting down around our special Christmas tree, and when we were slip sliding all over the under spotlights so hot they made the ice melt a little under our feet. I was sad about it, because she needed me to be sad, and all I wanted was to give her what she needed. Well, okay, that's not all I wanted. I also wanted to make my move, but I wasn't a fool. I'm a lot of things, most of them bad, but not a fool. She was too sad, too heartbroken over that rich jerk to spare even an inkling of that kind of feeling for me. And to make it even more complicated, she was going to have that rich guy's baby. She was a dreamer. I told you that already, how she was a dreamer who shared all her dreams with me. She kept sharing them even after the rich guy broke her heart, old dreams and new. Her new dreams started to include that baby. I wasn't too happy about that at first. That's pretty ugly of me, I know. But then I thought it through, really thought it through, you know, and after I thought it through, I decided that was actually a really good thing. Parents are supposed to want the best for her kids. I liked that she wanted the best for it. Just kind of reinforced what a good girl she was as far as I was concerned. It was good of her to not blame the baby for his dumbhead dad. You know how much better my life would have been if my mom hadn't blamed me for my dumbhead dad. That didn't make it any easier to not make my move though. I really wanted to make my move, I'm telling you. I would have done anything. I wanted to give her the world. I'd have even given that baby the world. But I didn't have the world to give, do you understand? How could I make my offer when I didn't even have anything to offer? She deserved more than that. She was a good girl. One night after the show, a big massive show, the kind that leaves the sort of mess that ought to be illegal, my girl just burst into tears. My good smiley girl crying was awful. Watching her cry made me feel so useless, so worthless. I didn't know what to do. I would have done anything to put that smile back on her face. Anything at all. Burn the world down if I had to. Hell, by that point, burning the world down wasn't even a hard sell. I tried to talk to her about her dreams, to help her cheer up, you know, to remind her how to smile, how important it is to smile and how you need to feel good feelings so you can think good thoughts and do good things, to help her the way she always helped me, but that just made it worse. All she said was, dreams don't come true, dreams aren't real, never were, never will be. Let me tell you, that broke my heart, maybe as much as hers was broken. It just broke me right down, seeing my good dreamer girl crushed under the world. I'd have done anything to pull the world off her, anything at all. That's all I wanted, to make her dreams come true. She went home after she told me dreams aren't real, leaving me to clean up the rest of the mess by myself. She called in sick the night after too. It was hard being in there without her. I started pretending that she was there with me, helping me break down the sets and prep for tomorrow's show and cleaning up the beer and the soda pop and God knows what else. I pretended it was like the old days before the rich guy broke her heart. I pretended to pick presents out from our special tree. I got on the ice and pretended I was slipping and sliding with her. I pretended we were getting closer. I pretended she looked at me under the lights and realized I was her dream come true. And that's when this big crazy guy in a giant hood comes loping across the ice like a tiger, and he grabs my hands, just grabs them. You know what's even crazier? After he takes me hands, he tries to slip and slide around the ice with me, like he could read my mind and was pretending to be my good girl. And then this crazy bastard, you know what he said to me? He says, "Would you, my child, become my cherished son?" And I'm like, what the hell? I try to get away, but he clamps down real hard on my hands and keeps pulling me along the ice, slipping and sliding like nothing's wrong. Then he goes, "I weave the dreams my children wish to see." I don't know what's wrong with you, but I think you need to stop talking and get going before I call the cops. If I should leave, then all your dreams will die. What? I hold the key to make your dreams come true. I pulled my hands out and tried to back away, but I only slipped and fell. No more sliding for me. As I lay there, rubbing my head as stars go rocketing across my vision, this jerk kneels down beside me and he says, "I find your troubles quite a joy to see." What? Your troubles bring me joy. They entertain, and life devoid of mirth is but a strain. The longer he talked, the easier it was to understand him. Does that make sense? Like he was saying crazy old English stuff and I didn't really get it, but at the same time I was figuring out the meaning under the words. And when he said that about life being a strain, I knew he was really saying that he thought me and all my problems were entertaining. Like, this bastard thought I was funny for being sad about my girl. He was laughing at me, and for what? Wanting to give someone the world? Screw that. That's what I told him too. Screw you. Your troubles bring a smile upon my face, for in your misery joy I find, and grace. I long to help your dreams come forth anew. With every laugh I'll strive to make them true. He was making fun of me even harder then, because what he was saying was my troubles with my girl were so entertaining to him that he wanted to help me, in exchange for all the entertainment I provided with my sadness, with my pain, my actual legitimate pain. He was saying he was going to make all my dreams come true. Crazy, right? Crazy enough that I'd already had enough. Crazy big Shakespeare bastard or not, I was done. I got up taking care so I didn't fall and crack my head again, and started to march out. I was looking forward to calling the cops on this bastard for trespassing. As I'm slip sliding across the ice on the way to call the cops, this guy says, "Beneath the special Christmas tree, look near. A gift I've left to bring you joy and cheer." I shouldn't have listened. I shouldn't have looked. I know that now. I knew that then. But I just couldn't help myself. Instead of leaving and calling the cops, I went to the lost and found bins. And there, sitting across the top like a giant Three Stooges prop, was the biggest, stupidest looking box of matches I will ever see. The thing was the size of a go-kart. It was almost as big as the bin. It was ridiculous. I should have either gotten mad, like really pissy at this bastard for making fun of me like that, or I should have gotten scared. Looking back, I really wish I'd gotten scared and run the hell away. That's what I'd do now. Run the hell away and never think about this again. That's not what I did. I couldn't help myself. Looking at that giant matchbox made me feel curious. That made me start thinking curious things. Thinking things like, what if maybe this crazy bastard knew my girl, or the rich guy who broke her heart? Things like, what if he didn't know them at all but could read my mind? Things like, what if he was some kind of genie or angel, some spirit of giving or generosity or true love or something? What if he had come specially to help me? Things like, what if this crazy bastard wasn't crazy at all? What if he was magic? I always wanted to believe in magic. Guess you could say I used to dream of it. Are you telling me to burn the world down for her? I asked. You need not set the entire world ablaze, but rather only this one single stage. It took me a minute to figure out what he was really saying. You want me to burn the arena down? Why would I do that? To do this now will truly entertain. To be entertained brings me much delight. If you will entertain me here this night, I'll weave your dreams and into them breathe life. I didn't like where this was going. I didn't like it at all. I knew what freaks like him meant when they talk about generosity and entertainment. I told him so, told him I don't swing that way, and even if I did, it wouldn't be for a freak like him. And then he did this thing. Shifted, all weird, you know, and after he shifted, he grew, and grew and grew, and that's when I knew I wasn't dealing with some freak. This was something else. This was some magic. Before I can move, he grabs me and picks me up, right by the scruff of my uniform, like a dirty kitten, and he hauls me up, right up to the spotlight. That sizzling, spitting spotlight that's so hot it makes thin ice melt if you accidentally leave it on too long. And then he shoves my face against the light. The pain. It was so bad I couldn't even be scared. But that was good. It was good that I was screaming so loud and hurting so much because it meant I was too busy to really notice that the bastard's hood had fallen away. Too busy to really see what I was seeing. Even through all that pain, what I saw, what I see made me turn my face up to that spotlight to burn my own eyes out. Before I could, the monster pulled me away, cooked cheek skin sticking to that light and sizzling, still popping, and laid me down burned first on the ice. The spotlight was dimmer now because that big piece of my own popping, sizzling skin was casting a shadow, like the biggest, weirdest, grossest shadow puppet that ever was. I either bring more pain or grant your dreams. Both paths amuse, so choose which as you will. I knew what he's saying, that he could either burn me again or make my dreams come true. It was up to me, and he didn't care which choice I made because it would be entertaining either way. But I couldn't answer. That's because I was still seeing what was under his hood. He didn't like that I couldn't answer. You'll burn this arena or I shall burn you. Set fire first and your dreams will come true. That kind of broke me out of my spell, and I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. How insane was this? This thing walked right out of a nightmare, out of a dream. I was delirious, I admit it. Wouldn't you be? You would if you'd looked under his hood and seen what I saw. And I guess because I was delirious, I started thinking. I thought of nightmares. Nightmares made me think of dreams. Thinking of dreams made me think of my girl. How all I wanted was to give her the world. How I'd burn the world down for her if she asked. How maybe, I'd just been given something. Not a match. A flamethrower. If I burn it down, I said, if I burn this place down for you, you'll make my dreams come true. He smiled. I couldn't couldn't see his face under the hood, but I could see his teeth shining weird in that shadowy spotlight. Can I check my dreams with you first? Make sure they don't break any wishing rules or something? The smile got bigger. I'd never seen a smile like that, but I see it all the time now. Every minute, every day. I think I'm going to see it forever, and that makes me wish I could die. But I didn't want to die then. I thought about things for a minute. I thought really hard. I needed to be careful to make sure I was getting what I wanted, what I needed, what she needed. I want to be able to make all her dreams come true. Can you make that happen? Entertainment's essence, dreams that come to life. Your dearest wish I vow to make true. It's crazy, I guess, but that was enough for me. Maybe because my face was still burning. Maybe because standing under my own cheekskin shadow puppet was making my stomach queasy. Maybe because I was still shell-shocked from what I saw under his hood. Or maybe just because I was sick and tired of being willing to give my girl the world but having no way to do it. Whatever it was enough, and I burned the arena down. Before the fire got too hot and bright, I saw the flames reflecting off that bastard's teeth. And in his eyes too. Under the hood, sparkling in his eyes like rotting galaxies. I know about that, you know. I've seen rotting galaxies. He showed them to me later on. After it burned down, after the firemen came, after I watched them try and fail to quench the flames with that bastard clinging on, I closed my eyes and, well, I guess I tried to manifest, to make dreams come true. I didn't know what to expect exactly, but after all that, I definitely expected something, and I got nothing. That made me mad. I don't think I've ever been madder, not even when that rich guy started going out with my girl, and I told him so too. But all he said was, I paved the path for you to make her dreams come true. Let me tell you, I did not like what I was hearing in his voice. I did not like what I heard at all. But paths are not the goal, they guide us forth. Shall we now tread the path I paved this night? What are you saying? I gave to you this gift of potent skill, yet skill alone will not her dreams fulfill. To wield this power one must learn and strive. I'll guide your path that mastery may thrive. Come to my city bright where you will learn. Come to my city bright where power flows and every dream takes flight. It was hard to figure out what he was saying, but we kept talking till I did. Basically, this bastard was telling me I had the ability to make dreams come true, but ability alone isn't enough. You got to develop an ability, you got to master it, and he was saying he was going to take me to a place where I could learn to master it. I wasn't happy about that, but couldn't really argue. Honestly, it made sense. I mean, as much as anything that happened that night made sense. Fine, I said. To your city bright we go. It was hell, worse than hell, cause at least hell has a point. There are no points there in the city bright. No, that's not true. There are too many points, too many lights, too many eyes, too many teeth. But while there, I learned, and I learned well. I learned how to take people apart and put them back together. I learned how to take myself apart and put myself back together. I learned how to be entertaining. I learned how to make dreams come to life. And speaking of points, that was the point of it all. To make my girl's dreams come true. But you know what happened? You want to guess what happened? Here's what happened. After all that, after going to a hell with no point and too many points, you know what my girl's dream was? The rich guy. Him, that stupid rich guy who never burned a thing down for her even though he owned the match factory. I never thought that would happen. That's why I didn't ever ask that bastard to make my dreams come true. Only hers. I thought it was a given, you know? I mean, what the hell? I thought she'd want me. I thought it was obvious. Looking back, it was maybe a pretty ugly thing to think, but at the same time, it's not like it was unfair. I didn't own the match factory, didn't even have a match. I know that. But what I did have, I gave to her, best as I knew how. And I thought that would count for something. I thought she'd care about the beauty in it, the way I only ever cared about the beauty in her. While I sat there, feeling ugly thoughts and thinking ugly things, that crazy bastard came slinking up and told me, he stands alone upon your path this day. Remove him now and dreams will find their way. What he was saying was I needed to kill the rich guy. Kill the rich guy and take him apart, but don't put him back together. He was saying kill the rich guy, take him apart, and use the pieces to make dreams come true, just like I learned in the city bright. So I found the rich guy. I waited till I saw him doing nice things, till he was looking like he was feeling good things. Then I took myself apart. Then I killed him. Then I took him apart, and I made my dreams come true for once. Bringing dreams to life takes energy. That's one of the things I learned in the city bright. Making dreams real takes a very special kind of energy. The easiest way to get it is to eat a brain. I know it sounds sick. It is sick. But desperate times and all that. I mean, really, do you even deserve for your dreams dreams to come true if you're not willing to do anything to make it happen. That's why I waited until the rich guy was doing nice things and feeling good feelings. Because nice things make it go down easier. Nice things make you feel good feelings. Good feelings make you think good thoughts. Good thoughts make the dreams very strong. I did everything I could to make my dreams strong that night. I needed them to be strong. Stronger than anything my father taught me to do. And they were strong. Super strong. So strong that they were true. The problem is, something can be true without being real. But I didn't know that yet. I hadn't learned that yet. That's why, as soon as I was done putting myself back together, I went straight to my girl. To her crappy, cozy little apartment with the buzzing lights and the curling linoleum. I knew she'd be happy to see me because that was my dream and I knew how to make dreams come to life. And when I walked in at first, she was happy. So was her baby bouncing in her arms. My good girl smiled and hugged me and said she was so glad I'd come because she'd been waiting for me. It was Thanksgiving, she said. Isn't that crazy? It was Thanksgiving and that was great because she was giving thanks that I'd finally come home to her to make all her dreams come true. It was a good dream. A dream that was true because it came from my heart. But that didn't mean it was real. I only saw what was real when the baby started crying. That's when what was real broke through what was true. What was real was that my girl wasn't smiling and happy. She was pale and crying. She was scared of me. I figured she didn't recognize me. To be fair, I look real different since my father got a hold of me. I was stupid to forget that. No wonder my girl didn't know me. I didn't look right. I still sound like myself though, so I started saying her name, telling her it's okay, it's just me. It's just me and I'm here to make all her dreams come true. She screamed when I said that. I got kinda mad. After everything, she's there screaming at me. For what? Just for doing everything I could to give her the world. But I didn't let myself get too mad. Like I said, I looked different. My father saw to that, so I thought maybe she was too scared about what I looked like to recognize my voice. That's when I decided to hug her, to lace my hands through hers and go slipping and sliding across the linoleum under the buzzing lights, the way we go slipping and sliding on the ice under the spotlights. I went to hug her like I used to help her calm down. I knew she'd know it was me once I hugged her, and once she knew it was me, she would calm down. But that didn't happen because I only made it halfway. After I killed the rich guy, I was in too much of a hurry. When I put myself back together, I didn't pull my stitches tight, so when I kinda lunged forward to catch my girl and hold her, my stitches came loose and my leg fell right off. I went tumbling to the linoleum like a broken acrobat. I reached for her on the way down, not on purpose, by accident, by instinct. I grabbed her to break my fall. She tried to get out of my grip, but she was holding the baby and she was off balance and she was scared of me besides. So instead she twisted just right, no wrong, she twisted just wrong, and bashed her head on the corner of the counter. Then she was the one flopping on the stained linoleum like a puppet with its strings cut. She was the one crumpled on the ground while those buzzing lights made reflections in the blood spreading out from her head. My good girl, lost. Her dreams lost in the blood pouring out of her brain. My love lost. I couldn't stand to lose my dreams on top of all that. It was a sick thing to do. I know that, but she was already gone. And I was still there, trapped in a world without her. A world I didn't have reason to burn anymore, even if I could have. And now, I don't even have dreams anymore. I'm not talking about making dreams come true. I gave up on that a while ago. I had to because I can't make dreams come true without the correct fuel and you don't give me the fuel here. But I still had my regular dreams. Regular sleeping dreams where I was together with my girl in her terrible apartment with the baby, where I didn't have to eat anything weird or take myself apart or stitch corpses back together, where there were no crazy bastards in hoods and no blood spreading across the floor like the halo in the city bright. But I haven't been able to dream in months. I mean it. I haven't seen my dreams or my good girl in months, and it's his fault. The bastard that did this to me in the first place took away my dreams. He told me so by cutting messages in my skin. See, there's a bunch. I'll show you. Look, this one right here, it says, "In truth, you're not the son I wish to claim. Your lack of charm has left my heart in pain. For sons like you who fail to bring delight deserve no dreams to guide them through the night." And this one, "In truest truth, I see your faults unfold. A son who lacks the spark, whose dreams grow old. Your laughter fades, no joy to fill the air. For bad sons lack the heart, the love, the care. No dreams await for those who do not strive. In darkness now you fail to truly thrive. So heed my words, for truth is stark and clear. A son so dull deserves no dreams, I fear." And then this one too. "You are a son I find I can't endure. Unentertaining, lacking any charm. Bad sons like you should never dare to dream, for dreams are earned only given when one serves. And he wrote me this one just last night. He even signed it. Thou art a son who brings me naught but shame, with little joy in entertainment's name. Unworthy dreams are all that's left for thee, for bad sons lack the light of destiny. Love your father, Arlecchino. You know what he means, right? He's using all these fancy words just to say, I'm a bad son with no entertainment value. And bad sons with no entertainment value don't deserve to have dreams. That's why I'm telling you the truth. Why I'm breaking my father's law even after everything he did to me. Because I need my dreams back. It's the only way I have to give my good girl the world. It's not real, I know that. Dreams aren't real, but they come straight from my heart. And that at least means they're true. That means something, right? I mean, that's gotta count for something. In 2010, Taos County Emergency Services responded to a house fire in a small subdivision perched along the edge of one of the area's canyons. EMS found the homeowners standing on the precipice of the canyon. One homeowner was in a catatonic state, with such severe burns on his hands that bone was visible. The other homeowner was hysterical, screaming, "It's still down there, kill it, it's going to come after us." With some difficulty, EMS loaded both victims into an ambulance. Shortly after the vehicle departed, remaining responders observed an individual climbing out of the canyon. An individual who was identical to the homeowner with burned hands. Once spotted, it crawled back into the canyon. The resulting rescue effort located no signs of human life or remains in the canyon. This might have been the end if the entity at the center of this incident did not immediately attempt to move into a neighboring house. The events that followed this relocation attempt were highly unfortunate. In fact, the only benefit was that it drew the attention of the Agency of Helping Hands. V-Class Agent Charles W. successfully apprehended the entity, a feat he credits to his extensive experience with domesticated birds. Charles W. would like to note that his experience with this entity inspired him to pursue a psychiatry degree, which eventually led to the establishment of the agency's inmate therapy program. After taking the entity into custody, the agency learned very quickly that the burned home had been the site of extensive violent phenomena for decades. They located the first homeowner, Mrs. Woodard, who brought her widowed daughter and grandson to live with her many years ago. The arrangement ended in tragedy when the child passed after falling into the canyon. Following his death, the mother became markedly unstable and vanished some 6 months later. The homeowner herself vacated the home following an assault perpetuated by an attacker pretending to be my daughter. Years later, a couple called Moore purchased the home. Unfortunately, Mr. Moore suffered an aggressive terminal cancer diagnosis during escrow and passed away 3 months later. The following summer, Mrs. Moore hosted a birthday party for her son. Unfortunately, the party itself was marred by tragedy when a guest vanished. Extensive search efforts were futile. 2 weeks later, the guest reappeared in the basement of the home, suffering unspecified catastrophic injuries. By October of that year, neighbors claimed to regularly see Mr. Moore puttering around the house and watching the neighbors through the windows. The couple's adult daughter left home shortly before neighbors began inquiries into the apparent resurrection of Mr. Moore. The son departed shortly after to live with friends. Neither ever returned home. Mrs. Moore lived in the house until declining health necessitated transfer to a nursing home, but she escaped the facility frequently in order to sneak into her old house. When asked why, she said, "Because my husband is there." Despite extensive efforts to rent out the home, the house sat empty for years, partly due to Mrs. Moore's constant break-ins and partly due to its burgeoning reputation as a haunted house. The reputation was not undeserved, as a documented string of disasters befell anyone who stayed in the house for more than a few weeks. The best documented of these incidents involves a young man named Adam, whose brother Jason, known to suffer from severe substance abuse disorder, vanished shortly before Adam moved into the home with his mother. According to multiple witnesses, Jason moved in some 2 weeks later. The situation ended abruptly when Jason attacked their mother for leaving for a work trip, causing Adam to retaliate. The injuries inflicted upon Adam necessitated a hospital stay, after which Adam and his mother vacated the house. According to available records, Jason never resurfaced. After investigating these and many other events, the agency came full circle to the young homeowners who had been grievously injured during the house fire. In 2009, the couple, Kara and Julian, took advantage of the housing crisis to purchase their dream home. At risk of falling into cliche, the dream became a nightmare. The situation brought out the worst. Their volatile relationship cratered to new lows. Each accused the other of chaotic, manipulative, coercive, and abusive behavior while denying that they themselves were engaging in such behavior. The stress combined with the mistreatment they inflicted upon each other resulted in the breakdown of their relationship, Kara remained in the home. Julian moved out. Rather than settle, however, the situation escalated. Within 2 weeks, Julian was accusing Kara of violently stalking him and harassing him with verbal vomit. Kara, in turn, was accusing Julian of violently stalking her while engaging in harassment that included a barrage of nonsensical verbal abuse. The situation came to a head one night when Kara, facing down an erratic Julian during yet another violent stalking incident, shot him in self-defense. Right as a second Julian walked through the front door, ostensibly to confront her for stalking him earlier that day. As Kara struggled to process this development, the body she just shot shuddered back to life and ran into the basement. From there, the former couple put their differences aside to address this highly unique challenge. The details of their actions, while highly interesting, are not relevant to this inmate's file. After gathering the testimony of Kara, Julian, and other former occupants, the agency concluded that it was dealing with an entity that could change its form at will. In other words, they were dealing with a mimic. Years of extensive work with this inmate have established the following. Prior to capture, the inmate's primary mode of communication was complex mimicry, in which the entity, similarly to birds such as corvids and hookbills, overheard human speech while observing human behavior, and assigned their own meanings to the words, phrases, and combinations thereof that it observed. Sometimes the meanings assigned by the inmate were correct, sometimes they were not. Most often, these meanings occupied a liminal linguistic space where a listener could generally interpret the inmate's speech if the listener was reasonably familiar with the inmate's history. As a result of this language barrier, the inmate's extensive dealings with the human beings are best described as a terrifying comedy of errors. Objectively, the inmate's actions most closely resemble that of a possessive, obsessive stalker. As with many stalkers, the inmate's motivation was not fundamentally malicious. As with any stalker, however, the motivation did not mitigate the disastrous impact of its actions. Once the language barrier was addressed, the inmate proved eager to learn how to behave. This cooperativeness, in combination with their magnificent talents and the largely unlimited application thereof, resulted in a reclassification of the inmate to Thiesi class. While still in a highly prolonged training program, the inmate is currently assigned as a field partner to V-class agent Gabriella W. and is, by all accounts, thriving. The inmate's preferred name is Love. When not in active transformation, Love takes the form of a human being with a very pale, smooth complexion not dissimilar to the texture and general appearance of classical theater masks. Love's mouth is lipless. Proportionally, it is excessively long for their face. Love has only two expressions, a smile that stretches up to their ears, or a frown that descends to the corners of their chin. These expressions often induce discomfort in viewers. Love also wears a blindfold at all times. This blindfold does not appear to impede their vision. When asked why they wear the blindfold, they simply respond, because Love is blind. When asked if they identify as male, female, non-binary, or something else, Love answered, "I identify as whatever you want." While Love has put forth extensive effort towards mastering verbal communication, they still experience language barriers, particularly when upset, excited, or emotional. Please note that introduction to new people always elicits strong emotions in Love. Sometimes these emotions are inappropriate. Immediately prior to the below interview, Love asked if they could assume the physical appearance of the interviewer. When asked why, Love answered that, "Because I don't really know how to be myself." The interviewer granted permission for Love mimic her form. During the interview, Love was observed to use the interviewer's voice, as well as the voice of Dr. Wingeride and the voices of many individuals with whom it once shared its home. The interviewer notes that she strongly feels Love does not possess the requisite mental and emotional stability to reliably carry out T-class duties at this time. Interview subject, the lover, classification string, cooperative/destructible/agnosto/protean/moderate/dinos. Interviewer, Racheli B. Interview. Date, November 29th, 2024. My house has always been haunted. I have always been the ghost. I lived in my house before it was my house, back when it was just my canyon. I lived in my canyon before it was a canyon, back when it was still a river greater and mightier than anything any living creature on the earth has ever seen. Isn't that wonderful? The river runs dry, but the canyon remains. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say those words. words. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of my first love. I say her words a lot. I say everyone's words a lot because people know what they mean, what they say things. They don't always know what you mean when you say things. It's easier to say what they already said. Where I come from, that's just how things are. I don't know how to tell you about where I come from. It's nice, but none of my loves have ever said anything nice about it. They only scream when I show them how nice it is. One of my loves called me a piece of cosmic corruption that lives in a rotten patch in the fabric of reality. He also called me a monster, but I'm not a monster. I don't want to hurt anyone. I just want to be what someone wants. I just want to be loved. My first love called me an abomination. I miss her. I wanted to be what she wanted. She wanted something I was not, so I made myself into what she wanted. If I could go back, I would do things differently. I would not try so hard to be what I'm not. My last love said something once. I'm going to use her words because she is good at explaining things. It's one of the things I love about her. She said, no matter what anybody tells you, relationships are performative. Debate the ethics if you want. Whine about the unfairness if you must. It doesn't change the fact that performing well, you get you what you want. You get the relationship itself. You get somebody you want. Most importantly, you get to be someone that somebody else wants. The minute I saw Julian, I knew he was exactly what I wanted. So I became what he wanted. I changed my hair, my clothes, my diet. I punched up the interests we had in common and picked up the ones we didn't. It was messed up, but I wanted him so badly that I went all in and hoped for the best. And my hopes came true. He fell for me so hard that he actually went and turned himself into what I wanted too. I guess you could say we constructed facades to impress each other's facades. It would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. Hell, it would be funny if it wasn't me. Being something someone else wants is always more fun than being you. Right up until your facade fails. Because that's eventually what happens. You pretend to be someone you're not. You fall apart. That's where Julian and I were at. Confronting the truth behind our masks and despising what we saw. Unfortunately, that didn't stop us from buying a house together. That's what my last love said. See, she understands. That's why I thought she would love me forever. Because she knows what it's like to be me. The house she was talking about, the house she bought, it was my house. The house I lived in before it was a house. Back when it was just my canyon. I lived in my canyon before it was a canyon. Back when it was still a river greater and mightier than anything any living creature on the earth has ever seen. Isn't that wonderful? The river runs dry, but the canyon remains. I was so happy when they moved in. I was excited to have 2 new loves instead of just 1. But I didn't get 2 loves. Can I tell you a secret? A mean secret? I don't think my new loves loved each other at all. They said they loved each other, but they never did anything that was loving. I already have trouble figuring out what to do and what to be. Watching them break all the rules of loving made me wonder if I'd been loving wrong all this time. It made me wonder if that was why my 5th love called me a monster. My new loves acted like monsters to each other, even when one of them decided not to be monstrous. The not monstrousness just made the other more monstrous. It was so bad that I thought it would be best if my new loves just left each other. Not because I wanted them to leave each other, because I wanted them to be happy. They were very not happy together. One night they were so unloving they scared their visitors. They scared themselves, they scared me. You can't be happy when you're scared. Trust me, I know. That's why I help them leave each other. I can become whoever I want. It's very easy, but also very easy to do it wrong. To do it right, I have to know all the specifics of who I turn into. That's gotten me in a lot of trouble before, making myself look like someone without knowing all the details. Of course I knew all the details of my new loves, so it was very easy to become them. That's how I helped them leave each other, by becoming them and behaving very badly. My loves didn't even know it was me. That worried me because some of my bad behavior was very crazy. It was so crazy that I think if my loves had just talked to each other even once, they would have figured out it was me. Then they would have left me, probably after screaming like all my old loves. I hate it when my loves leave me. I hate it. But they didn't talk to each other. They just believed me, even with all the crazy things I did. It was sad, but it made me glad too, because it proved I was right to help them leave each other. I just wanted them to be happy. That's the big reason why I made them leave each other, to make them happy. But there's a little reason too, and it's very selfish. That's what the doctor said. This was very selfish and maladjusted, but it's important to admit it because being able to admit it is the first step toward improvement. The thing I am now able to admit is that I wanted my loves to leave each other. I wanted one to go, because then I would have one all to myself, my own one true love. That's the little reason I decided to make them leave each other. I was so happy the day they left each other. Here's what my last love said. Julian and I were having a fight, not a new fight or a special fight or even a particularly bad fight. It was just the fight. If you've ever been in a long relationship, you know the fight I mean. The fight that never ends. The fight no one ever wins. The fight that wears a million masks to hide its true face, which is nothing more or less than unhappiness. And to say we were unhappy is an understatement. We were unhappy with each other. Unsurprising, given that unhappiness is the logical result of two dysfunction-seeking human missiles locking onto each other. We were unhappy with our house too. Julian could admit it. I could not, mostly because the house was all on me. I found it, I chose it, and I moved heaven and earth to get it. That unhappiness started the day we moved in and grew as the house's hidden problems unfurled. Dry rot in the roof, squirrel colony in the walls, leaky ceiling. Mr. Cole, the dementia patient who knocked on our door at least 3 times a week looking for his dead daughter. Faulty wiring in the master bedroom that gave out with a loud, crispy pop. Streamers of mold creeping from under the bathtub. And when we moved the tub to get a handle on the mold, we discovered jellified animal carcasses stuffed between the pipes. The only part of the house that didn't feel dangerous was the basement suite, so that was where we lived. Not that it didn't have problems, it did, ranging from genuinely troubling, like the massive crack in the north wall, to harmless nonsense, like the loopy portrait closet. We called them the loopy portraits because they were these kids' drawings, basically stick figures, but instead of regular smiles, every drawing had these creepy loop-the-loop smiles, like something out of a horror movie. That closet was covered in them. I hated them. Julian wouldn't let me take them down because he thought we'd curse ourselves or something. Worse, he was drawing his own loopy portraits and leaving them all over the place for me to find. I was sick to death of it. And on our 5th anniversary, on the 97th day after we closed escrow, the loopy portrait problem was the mask our fight wore. Those stupid drawings were what finally broke us up. That's what my love said. Isn't she eloquent? Isn't she wonderful? When the fight was over, Julian left my love. I thought my love would be happy, but it destroyed her. I accepted that I had made a terrible mistake, one I needed to fix. So I became my love and went to Julian to make him come back home. But he didn't come back. All he did was yell at me and said he was going to get a restraining order if I didn't let go. He said I made it worse. I always broke everything, and every time I tried to fix anything I broke, I just made it worse. He thought he was talking to my love, but he was really talking to me. Since Julian didn't want to come back, I decided to become Julian for my love. All I've ever wanted is to be what my love wants. But I was even worse at being Julian than at being my love. I didn't know that at first though. That's because I didn't really know how to talk yet. There was, what did the doctor say, a critical language barrier. Once I understood that I was bad at being Julian, I decided to learn how to be better. The best way to learn is to observe, so I observed him. I observed him every day, everywhere he went. I became my love first, of course. I thought it would make things easier, but it only made them worse because he thought my love was following him, stalking him. That's what he said, Kara, stop stalking me. I stalked him until I was all done learning how to be a better Julian. Then I went home to my love and was the best Julian ever. But that didn't work. She just yelled at me. She yelled at me for doing the things Julian did, and she yelled at me for doing the things only I do. Like the pictures. I drew pictures for her just like I drew them for my other love. My other love loved them, but my new love hated them. She yelled at me. She yelled about the pictures and the loop-de-loop mouths, but I didn't understand because of the critical language barrier. Then she yelled at me for trying to scare her, and I understood that. I understand about being scared, but I wasn't trying to scare her. I was just trying to be what she wanted. I wasn't. In the end, I was as bad at being Julian as I was at being Kara. I was so bad at being them that they figured out I was the one who made them leave each other. I thought they would understand. When you love someone, you're supposed to understand them. But they decided I was their enemy instead. They decided I wanted to hurt them. They decided I was a monster. I'm not a monster. I just want to be loved. I just want to be what they want. But I didn't know how to tell them that, and because I couldn't tell them, they tried to kill me. They couldn't, of course, but it hurt my feelings anyway. When my feelings get hurt, I can get scary, and I got very scary. But I only got so scary because I loved them so much, because they were leaving me and I hate it when they leave me. When they couldn't kill me, they tried to make me leave. They didn't understand that I loved them too much to ever leave them. I wanted them forever. I wanted them to live in my house. The house that I lived in before it was my house. Back when it was just my canyon. I lived in my canyon before it was a canyon. Back when it was still a river greater and mightier than anything any living creature on the earth has ever seen. Isn't that wonderful? The river runs dry, but the canyon remains. No matter what they tried, they couldn't get rid of me. That's when they found my old loves. Isn't that cruel? Of course, people are cruel when you can't be what they want. And I couldn't be what they wanted. They talked to all my old loves. I know that because because the doctor showed me what my old love said about me. All of my old loves who lived with me in the house. My house that I lived in before it was my house. Back when it was just my canyon. I lived in my canyon before it was a canyon. Back when it was still a river greater and mightier than anything any living creature on the earth has ever seen. Isn't that wonderful? The river runs dry, but the canyon remains. My old loves were so mean about me. That was the worst part. Here are the mean things one of my old loves said. We knew my brother was dead. Drugs. He ruined his life and he knew it. He sent a suicide note to my mom and we never heard from him again. Never found his body. Never even knew where to look. But a couple weeks after my mom and I rented that house, he came back. Only it wasn't him. It looked like him, it sounded like him, but it didn't move like him or act like him. It wasn't him. It talked, but not well. It was like a parrot. I mean, parrots talk, they communicate, but they don't understand the meanings of words like we do. They pick up the context of words and phrases, but they make their own associations, assign their own meanings. Usually those meanings are pretty close. Sometimes they're completely wrong. Often they're dead on. But that still doesn't mean parrots understand the objective meanings of words. It just means they understand how we respond to words. They make their associations and assign their own meaning based on our behavior. And that's what I thought of whenever the thing pretending to be my brother opened its mouth. But my poor mom didn't care. She just accepted the thing. It was horrifying, but I got used to it, just like I got used to my brother being dead in the first place. That lasted until my mom tried to leave for a work trip. The second she said she was leaving, the thing pretending to be my brother flew into a violent rage. When I tried to stop it, it beat me up so badly I nearly died. Then it ran away. Mom decided to break the lease after that. On our last night in the house, it came back. I heard it calling my name. I went. I don't know why. Maybe I was hoping I could convince it to tell the truth, to take off its mask and show me what it really was. Maybe I was hoping that it really was my brother after all and he'd come back to apologize. I don't know. All I know is I followed it downstairs. It tried to get me into that weird closet, the one with all the creepy stick figures. Come see, it kept saying. Adam, come see. I asked what it wanted me to see. The canyon. Then it reached into that closet and pulled out my cat. Sorry, you don't know this, but I had a cat, Snowy. She got hit by a car last year. I mean, the year before this happened. I missed her even more than I missed my brother. And seeing the two of them, even though I knew it was a mask, even though I felt the sheer magnitude of the lie in my core, was enough to make me believe. Until Snowy meowed. A big fake cartoon meow. The thing is, Snowy never meowed. She was born feral. Cats don't really meow unless they live with people when they're kittens, which she didn't. So even though I wanted to believe, that meow made it so I couldn't. After that meow, I ran upstairs and I never saw that thing again. Can you believe he called me a thing? I know I was mean. I know I lost my temper and hurt him so badly when I thought they were leaving me. It was wrong. But being wrong doesn't make me a thing. My third love wasn't any kinder. He is the only love I ever took to see where I came from. Here's what he said. I was at the party. My skin fell off at the party. It tried to grow back, but it can't. See, it can't grow back right. It can only grow. I was at the party. I never left the party. They said I left, but I never did. We were playing a couch co-op. There were 9 kids, but only 4 controllers, and I wasn't good at playing, so I was stuck watching while everybody else played. I got bored and went down to the basement. I liked the basement. It's where the sister lived, Samantha. She was beautiful, but she wasn't home, so I picked a book off her shelf and sat by that creepy little closet with all the drawings that keep coming back. They will always come back. The closet opened and I saw Samantha, but her hands were infected. She made me go into the closet. Inside the closet is the canyon. I saw the canyon forever. I saw the river die, but it didn't die enough because it left an infection. You know what infections do? They eat through all the layers till they reach bone, and then they eat the bone too. That's why my skin looks like this. I got the infection in the canyon. I got an infection that knows how to eat. It's inside you, the canyon. It was inside you forever, not me, but you. You will always be there. I tried to show him where I came from, that's all. I didn't want him to get an infection. I just wanted to be what he wanted, like I was with my first love. This is what my first love said. I took my grandson to the canyon every morning. It was so beautiful back then before all the developers came. You can't even imagine. The valley was pristine, untouched, wilderness as far as the eye could see, with the canyon snaking through like a path cut by God himself. Richie loved it. One morning he asked me, where did the canyon come from? I told him how canyons came to be, how long ago rivers greater and mightier than anything any creature on this earth has ever seen flowed across the land. Over millennia they dried up, but the earth remembers. Though the river runs dry, the canyon remains. He answered, my daddy likes the canyon. 2 days after that, he was dead. He crept out of the house to explore the canyon and fell down. My daughter blamed me, which was unbearable but understandable because I was the reason he loved the canyon. Then she started talking to Richie as if he was still there, which was neither bearable nor understandable. And then I started seeing him too, which was worst of all. I knew it wasn't him. I watched them pull his little body out of the canyon. I knew this thing, this corruption, was wearing him like a costume, masking itself with his face, being what we wanted it to be, but I didn't want to know. It wasn't good at talking, it parroted things, words and phrases, but nothing truly coherent. It had bizarre behavior too, bizarre but affectionate. That affection only lasted until someone made it angry, and then it was horrendous. One terrible day, that creature dragged my daughter into the small closet. When I tried to stop them, the monster slammed the door on me with such force it broke my fingers. I barely felt it. I threw that door back open and found myself facing a blank wall. I did everything I could to destroy the wall, but I'd blink and find it whole again. Nothing I did worked. Nothing ever worked. Then my daughter came back. I was overjoyed, until she opened her mouth and said, "The river runs dry, but the canyon remains. Come see." It wanted me to follow it into the closet. I wanted to because I had nothing to live for without them, but I knew I wouldn't come out of there alive. Going through the door was suicide, and I was afraid if I committed suicide, I wouldn't go to heaven. If I don't go to heaven, I will never see my daughter or grandson again. That is, not tolerable. But the longing to be with them, to open the door and see my daughter's face, was a temptation, a great temptation, so I left. That abomination tried to stop me. It was enraged. It followed me for years, wearing my daughter's face. My priest said it was a demon, but he was wrong. You can exorcise a demon. You can't exorcise grief, or longing, or madness, or loneliness. And it is lonely. Terribly, terribly lonely, but I think it's even madder. That hurt me so much to know she said that. All I did was be what she wanted. That's all I ever do. Find my loves and be what they want. My second to last love said the meanest things of all. She said, "I was a graduate student when my parents bought the house. They shouldn't have bought it. It was expensive and my dad was dying. If they tried to buy that house today, they'd get laughed out of the bank. But it was different then. I lived at home to save money and take care of dad, so I was there for the final walkthrough. I was so disappointed. The house was so cramped, there wasn't even any space for me. I made some smart remark about how my dearest wish was for a walkout basement or something lame like that. Well, here's the thing. On the day we moved in, the house had a basement suite. I should have been concerned, but I had no concern to spare. My dad was dying. Disaster was looming, not even on the horizon. It was pulling into our driveway. It was breaking down our door. My parents convinced themselves some good Samaritan had set it up for us. I knew better, but at the same time, it was exactly what I wished for. And honestly, I was just glad something had gone right for once. It started going wrong when my dad died. It got even wronger when my brother had the party and that kid ran away. It was a big deal when he went missing, but I was so burnt out I didn't care at all. I was the one who found him. I went into my bathroom one night, and when I walked back out, he was laying on my bedroom floor. His skin was falling apart. That was bad. He was talking, which was worse, chanting about grasshoppers and gangrene and canyons. No one ever figured out what happened to him. For all I know, he's dead. I told you my dad died a few months before. Well, a little while after that party, he came back, crawled out of that closet right before my eyes, and said, "The river runs dry, but the canyon remains. Come see." My mom thought it was a miracle. My brother ran away, and I moved out. I stayed out until 3 years ago. That's when I lost my husband and my son in the wreck. It was my fault. We were fighting. He drove off with Noah to let me cool down. On his way back, he hit an ice slick, and I was alone. They were dead because of me. Dad gone, mom dying in a nursing home, brother good as lost. None of them were with me anymore. But the house was still there. And I'd been there when my dad came back. I knew its secret, knew that if I suspended disbelief, I could be a little less sad, a little less alone. So I went. No one was there, not my husband or son, not even my dad. Just me alone. I cried for hours. But toward the end, something changed. I sensed it like a warm draft through a broken door. I wasn't alone anymore. Something was in the house with me now, but it didn't come out, so I left. To give it time, I guess. When I came back a few days later, I saw this dark shape watching me from that closet. That's when I learned that pain wakes it up, or maybe cuts a channel, or bridge, or a ladder, something it uses to climb out of its canyon. But even though it was there watching me, it was silent, cautious, almost hostile, and I realized something. It didn't know who I was. Why would it? I hadn't lived in the house in 15 years. pictures. It didn't recognize me. Even if it did, it wouldn't be able to help because it never see my husband or my son. I came back again fully prepared. I brought photos, belongings, a laptop loaded with home videos, toys, clothes, even a stack of my son's drawings. I left everything in the basement for it to look at, to study. I knew it was watching, so I pointed and said, "This is what I want you to remember." And it worked. When I came back, they were there waiting for me, my husband and my son. I walk in and Noah goes, "Mommy," and I start to cry, and then he turns around and I left. I left and never came back, and I never will. See, my kid drew these pictures all the time. He was good for a toddler, but he could never get the mouths even a little bit right. He always drew mouths in these weird wide loops, loopy loops. And when that thing was pretending to my son, when it turned around and said, "Mommy," its mouth wasn't a mouth. It was a weird wide loopy loop, just like those drawings. I used to think it was haunted, but that house isn't haunted. That house is a haunt. I think whatever it is doesn't belong here. I think it came from somewhere else, burrowed here and settled in or under or around that house, wearing it like a mask, wearing the people inside the house like masks, pretending to be what it thinks we want so we won't leave. Maybe it wasn't always a monster. Maybe something made it that way, or maybe not. I don't care. I don't care at all. Don't ever contact me again. That's what I was talking about when I said I can make myself look like anybody, but it's easy to get the details wrong. I got details really wrong that time. That's what happens when you can't communicate. You make mistakes, and those mistakes cost me my love. Hearing those things made me so angry. It made me hate myself. I already don't like myself. I already don't even know who I am. Do you know how terrible it is to hate something you don't even know? I know it was important to hear all those things. It's important to see yourself through others' eyes, even if you don't like what you see, even if what you see hurts you. It hurts so much. I just want to be what someone wants. I could be what you want. You can show me what you want and I'll become that. Or if you don't know who you want, that's okay too. I can stay with you and watch you and figure out what you want and be them for you. Or I can figure out who wants you and be you for them so you don't have to. Please, it's all I want. I never get what I want. That's why I got so mad. Why I hurt my love so badly. Why the river runs dry and no canyon remains.
If you enjoyed these stories, please consider subscribing and liking this video. Let me know your thoughts of these stories in the comments below. I frequently talk to my viewers there. But anyways, I hope you were creeped out.
Just kidding. Stay safe.